This is A's Cast Live, your comprehensive look at the Oakland Athletics.
And the pitch is swung on, hit the right field, hit deep. Whitefield going back at the track, over his head, and over the wall. Do you believe that?
And 29 other MLB clubs.
Ramirez with a drive to deep right, away back, goal!
Go Hayes! Gets a bomb out there by the Rocks. And boy, oh boy, this third inning is now showtime.
It is a judging blast. All rise. Here comes the judge.
Join us as we take you inside the baseball universe, from humidors to spin rates to game-changing moments. We have you covered. Spend your afternoon with us next from the town, only on A's Cast Live. Here's Chris Townsend.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to A's Cast Live as we're going to get you ready for the Athletics and the New York Yankees as the Athletics continue their road trip in the Bronx, taking on the Yanks for 3. We're going to see Sears, Rucinski, Mueller up against Nasty Nestor. Going to have Schmidt going for the Yankees on Tuesday. Brito will go on Wednesday. So 2 night games, then a day game on Wednesday, A's and Yankees. Plus, we got a lot going on in Major League Baseball. But today is going to be about Vida Blue. And we are going to pay tribute to one of the great A's and one of the great superstars of his time. Raleigh Fingers is going to join us in moments. We're going to have Raleigh in moments.
Correct. Over the phone, Raleigh, but yes, Raleigh in moments.
Well, that's fine. Anywhere you can get the Hall of Famer. Raleigh Fingers at 105, Joe Rudy at 115, Marty Lurie, who knew Vida very well. Marty worked around the A's for years, now over at KNBR, but as we say, one of our baseball historians. He'll be here at 1:30. David Feldman, our A's historian, at 2 o'clock. A's Hall of Famer Dave Stewart at 2:30, and then we will replay, which was probably, as a formal interview, probably Vida Blue's last interview that I was able to do with him, celebrating the 73 team. We did the interview after there was little scrums going on with media people, but a sit-down, just full-fledged interview. I don't know what he did after we interviewed him. I know there was media people asking questions, but this is I'd have to think his last formal sit-down interview that he ever did.
Yeah, and it was April 15th, I think, is when we did it. So it wasn't even a month ago. So, but I'm glad we were able to catch up with Vida.
Well, and today is a day that we celebrate the man. And I know it's sad, but knowing Vida, if you look at all the old players, Vida Blue is someone I actually knew. I've known Vida for 30 years. I did stuff with Vida Blue very early in my career, in the mid to kind of like 97, 98 at KNBR with him. I've known Vida for a long, long time. Done TV with him, did a lot of radio with him, done countless interviews. He was just such a great man. Vida Blue was such a caring, generous person who, you hear it in his interviews all the time where he just talked about, Mansfield, Louisiana, being a small town boy. He was that guy. No matter the star he was that guy. And we literally, as you just said, did an interview with him. Then I got to talk with him after. And it's hard to believe he's gone. It really is. But even in the last, you're going to hear it in the last interview, just his mindset and so appreciative to be there with his brothers, his teammates. These guys were like brothers. That's the one thing I'm so happy for Vida, that he got to do one last event, and he did not look well. And we were told by the woman he was with, I don't know exactly their relationship, but she said, oh, he's going to get better. Because we had just seen him X amount of months earlier when we celebrated the 72 team, and Vida was fine. When you're doing the 72 thing, I mean, if you remember, we had all the players. If you're a season ticket holder, we did that event, and we had all the players in all the seats, and Vida was there, and he was fine. Do we have Raleigh?
He should be there.
Raleigh, it's Chris Townsend. How are you?
Hey, Chris. How you doing?
Doing well, and I know we just spoke with you recently at the 1973 reunion. I hate to bring you back under these circumstances. It's obviously a very tough day in the A's family. Vida Blue meant so much to so many people, such a great person, and I know he was a close friend of yours.
Oh, yeah. I knew, I've known Vida ever since Scully. When he first came up, I think he came up at the end of the season in '69, then went back to the minor leagues. And they brought him up at the end of the season, I think in 1970. And he proceeded to throw a no-hitter. I think the first or second start that he had, he just blew away the Twins. So he was certainly a great young pitcher. And you could see that he was ready for stardom.
Yeah, what's always so interesting to me about Vida, Raleigh, was that as big of a star that he became, the small town boy from Louisiana never left. That was always fascinating to me.
Oh yeah, no, he loved the fans, and he had no problem signing autographs for kids. I don't think I ever saw him turn down an autograph for a kid. So he was very accessible to the public, and the people loved him. And when he pitched, we usually filled up the ballpark when he pitched, especially after he threw his no-hitter. Everybody wanted to see another one. He was amazing. 1971, that year, he was unhittable. He was amazing for a rookie player. I mean, I would go down to the bullpen and watch him warm up before he started. And I just walk back to the dugout and say, boys, game over. Because he's throwing everything 97, 98 miles an hour, hitting the glove with every pitch. Had a good cut fastball, good sinking fastball, good velocity, great big curveball. I mean, he'd lock your knees with a curveball if you were a left-hander. So he had great stuff. And in 71, he had an unbelievable year, won the Cy Young MVP, won everything. And then I think one of his biggest downfalls was his second year in 72. He got into a contract dispute with Charlie Finley, and Charlie kept him out of spring training. He started late, didn't have a real good year. I think he was only won 6 or 7 ball games, and I think that really hurt him, not being able to come to spring training and getting in shape with the rest of the guys for that season.
We magazines aren't what they used to be, and when we try and tell the younger generation of A's fans just how big of a star he became, here he is, just not on Sports Illustrated and Baseball Digest. I mean, he's on the cover of Time magazine. He's on the cover of Newsweek. We didn't have cable television, and we didn't have all that different stuff. Just talk about how fast really Vida Blue in Oakland A became a household name and a star.
Well, he that year in 71 that he was just beating everybody, and the press the press and the fans at the ballpark, there would be an extra 10, 15,000 people at the ballpark every time he pitched, because he was a phenom in 71. It was just unbelievable, the stuff that he had and the way he pitched. And I mean, he carried us through the 71 season into the playoffs. And I think we won 102 ball games that year. It was crazy. And I think one of the other things that probably in 71, Dick Williams only let him, I think the last two starts he had during the season, they only let him go 5 innings. And then they took him out because they wanted to get him ready for the playoffs. They didn't want him pitching 9 innings. But he was so strong that he could probably throw a heck of a lot more than 5 innings. And I think if he'd have thrown more innings towards the end of that season, he would have probably had a better postseason that year. We got beat by Baltimore in 3 games, but he was a workhorse. I mean, he was strong. You go out there and he no problem him throwing more. I mean, I remember one ball game against the Angels. He started against Rudy May, and he went 12 shutout innings, and the score is 0-0 after 12. And I came in to relieve him, and I pitched 7 innings, and the score's still 0-0. So he was a strong guy, and he had to have close to 150 complete games in his career. So he was a workhorse. He could go out there and go 9 easy.
And he was a terrific athlete. I mean, could have played college football as a quarterback. He was a really good hitter. I mean, all the guys were good hitters, really. I mean, I look at it in 1968 on this date, Catfish Hunter throws a perfect game. And what's crazy also, he went 3 for what? He drove in 3 of the 4 runs. So Catfish Hunter has a perfect game, and he drives in. He has 3 RBIs, 3 out of the 4 runs. I mean, you guys and Ken Holtzman could hit. So, I mean, you guys had not only were these guys really good pitchers, they were really good athletes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Kenny was a great hitter, and he had a home run in a World Series. Catfish, there was, I think, a couple of games in '73 when they adopted the DH that Dick Williams let him hit in his 9th spot because he hit over 300, I think, in one year. I think in '72 he hit over 300. So yeah, we had a pretty good hitting staff as far as the pitchers. We always took batting practice, and we had a great pitching staff that could hit. So that helped out. But when the DH got in there in '73, almost all the pitchers were taken out, and the DH was used. But Catfish was one of the few that let the manager let him go ahead and hit.
You know, the All-Star game has changed over the years. It's truly just a glorified exhibition now. But back in your guys' day, the All-Star game was a really big deal. The entire country watched it. You guys really wanted to win it. There was truly that National League versus the American League. And Vida Blue was the first guy to start the game for the American League, start the game for the National League. He won the game for both leagues. So there was the World Series, there was the stuff with the A's, and then there was, other stuff that happened in his career. He had I think in the end, Raleigh, he won 3 All-Star games.
Yeah, I don't know his total stats, but there's probably a good chance. I know he made 6 or 7 All-Star teams. And usually when he did, he was usually the starting pitcher. So if he went the mandatory 3 innings, I'm sure he got a win. Yeah, he was always up for the big games. He could pitch. He knew what he was doing out there, and he had pretty good control. He had good strikeout pitcher too. He had no problem striking out 10, 11, 12 guys a game. And he was a horse. He was a workhorse for us.
Well, let's end on this. I know this 73 reunion was so big for you guys to see each other, and we talked to you about cherishing these moments. Just talk about, when you do have that opportunity, and hopefully we're going to do it again next year, celebrating 74, that you enjoy every single minute because, tomorrow's promised to nobody.
Well, that's for sure. I never thought Ray Fosse would pass away at the age he did, or Sal Bando, and now Vida. We lost three key players during those 72, 3, 4 World Series years. So it's been a sad year for us as far as ball players passing away on those 3 teams. But I saw Vida at the reunion. I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he was walking with a cane, and I asked him how he was doing, and he said that he's been dealt. His words were, "I think I've been dealt a bad hand." I said, "Well, you hang in there, pal." So they were trying some new type of chemotherapy, I think, with him, that he said, and I don't know how bad his cancer was at the time, but obviously it was pretty bad.
Well, you mean so much to this franchise history, to the fan base. Take care of yourself, be well, and hopefully we'll talk soon under better circumstances.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for calling.
The great Raleigh Fingers, the Hall of Famer, the A's Hall of Famer. And yeah, it's something that really tough. Joe Rudy's going to join us in moments as Joe join us via Satellite, as they used to say back in cable television.
Joe Rudy, big video guy, so he's said he'd come on over video. I sent him the link. The last few times we've done with him, he's been video. So yeah, satellite from, I think it's Florida.
We go via satellite, is what they always just say on CNN.
Yeah, well, that was back before that Zoom and StreamYard and all that stuff existed.
I mean, think about that. The All-Star Game was a major deal. Now it's an exhibition, and they're going to take pictures and selfies, and that meant something to them to win the All-Star Game. It was truly because guys didn't cross leagues. Guys didn't have agents. Not everybody was buddies. Big Papi was not going into the dugout talking to everybody on Fox. This was a game that they played, and they wanted to win, and they wanted to kick the crap out of the National League, and the National League wanted to kick the crap out of the American League. Willie Mays and Hank Aaron and those guys would play the entire game. They came to the game to win it. And Vida Blue started first guy. He's not the only guy to win it for both leagues, I believe, but he's the first guy to start the All-Star Game when it meant something for both the American League and the National League, and won those games. I believe he's got 3. Check his All-Star. I think he's got 3 All-Star wins. No, wins don't matter, huh?
Vida also has, Raleigh said 150 complete games.
108.
Very close, 143.
143?
He had 24 the year he won the MVP and signed.
140. I've been busting this guy's chops right over here. I know he's not in the picture right now about pitching because, everybody wants to act like pitching, you guys are all old man River in your stats. It's like, when you talk about the great pitchers, and we're going to go over this the next couple of days because I've really been delving into it, look about what we talk about.
2 wins in the All-Star Game for Vida.
2 wins?
Yeah.
Okay. Think about what we talk about. We're going to talk about his wins. We're going to talk about his innings. We're going to talk about his complete games. We're going to talk about his strikeouts. All stuff. Pitchers nowadays, guys under 30, they've got no chance to get to any of this stuff. Like you're going to have Verlander, Scherzer, Kershaw, Wainwright, Greinke, Cole, maybe.
Yeah, Cole's probably the last one.
After that, you're having guys that are never going to come anywhere near the numbers of someone like the great Vida Blue or the pitchers of their time. And the great Joe Rudy joins us. Joe, we just talked to Raleigh, and same thing for you. Thank you for coming on. I know we just talked recently at the 1973 reunion. My condolences. I know how much Vida meant to you, how much he meant to all of us, but how much he meant to you guys. You won so much. You guys were all so close. It's got to be a tough day.
It was definitely a shock. Dietrich Page, that handles all the alumni people for the A's, has done a great job over the years. And I know she was so close to Vida also. And she called me yesterday to tell me that he had passed away. And I was in shock. I knew that he was not doing well. I just didn't know that it was that serious when we saw him. I'm just so happy that he came. I mean, you think about his condition when he came to be around the guys. I mean, that took a lot of gumption to show up and be there. And I'm just so happy that he came to the reunion. I mean, that meant everything to all of us now as we look back. It's just hard to believe.
I'm so glad you said that because I started the broadcast yesterday against the Kansas City Royals with that message that I think it was so special that he was able one more time to see you guys who are not only his teammates, but like his brothers, for you guys to be together one more time. And now knowing what's happened, how really special that moment was celebrating the 73 team.
It really was a great time to be together. Like I said, we've lost too many of the guys already. And, but for him to come and spend that time with us, and I knew that he wasn't doing well. I don't think any of us knew how sick he really was. And, he was there through the dinners and sitting down in the lobby with all of us, talking and about the old times and stuff. And, I wouldn't trade the time I played for today and the money for anything, because we had such a great time. Most of us played together for 10, 15 years, and you just don't do that anymore. And, all of us started out in the minor leagues more or less together, worked our way up, and when Vida came up, you reminded me so much of Reggie. I mean, how could God give one guy so much talent? And Vida was such a great athlete. I think he was all-state. A lot of people were recruiting him to be a quarterback down there in football, and Mr. Finley was able to talk him into playing baseball, which is a great blessing for us because he sure had a great career with the A's.
When I think about a small town guy, you were a small town guy, obviously from the Central Valley in California. Amazing that you small time guys all of a sudden did some big town things. And next thing you know, you guys are winning World Series and here comes the stardom. Just take us through what that was like for yourself, for Vida Blue, where you guys came from. And now you're on the national stage year after year after year.
Well, I think it goes back to most of us who are so blessed to have some great people in our lives early on. I grew up in a little small town called Waterford, which is about 15 miles east of Modesto, about 100 miles, east of the Bay Area there. And I was very blessed with the number of neighbor kids that were in my neighborhood. We grew up playing baseball in the street all day long, every day, and the weather was good where we could play most of the year round. And then I had some great Little League Babe Ruth coaches, and was again blessed to move to Modesto for high school. And I had a gentleman named Jerry Streeter who had played probably, I don't know, maybe 10 years in the Dodgers organization. I know he spent about 5 or 6 years in AAA behind Maury Wills at shortstop, and retired a few years before I had got to Downey High School and became my coach, and made me play shortstop of all things. Through high school, because he said that's where you learn the most. He said you probably end up in the outfield later on, and I didn't know what he meant by later on. I'm a freshman, sophomore kid in high school, and he guided me along the way. And then we were blessed to, sign with the Kansas City A's. People don't realize the people. We had Hall of Fame coaches, Luke Appling, who was a Hall of Fame shortstop from the White Sox, Gabby Hartnett, Hall of Fame catcher. And just so many really, John McNamara, who was really my tutor, played Double-A for him, and he gave me my chance to play in 1970, went spring training in 1970. And of course, Reggie was holding out, and Mac told me, he said, hey, the left field job is yours to lose. You're going to play every inning of every game of spring training, and which I ended up doing, and was fortunate enough, to run onto another great gentleman called Charlie Lau, who dramatically changed my approach at hitting and taught me how to hit the other way and all that stuff. And again, nobody makes it by themselves. You look back, I'm sure Vida had the same people in his life and growing up where he did down south. And what a great, sports area that Louisiana is. I mean, you just look at the number of great players that have come out of that area.
Yeah, I think Vida, as you mentioned, the football, just a terrific athlete. Just blessed with that arm. I mean, the ability to throw. We didn't have radar guns then. We weren't tracking, but everybody knew he was throwing high 90s, if not at times triple digits. He was just blessed. I mean, and it's like he had the perfect attitude, the perfect upbringing to be the aw shucks, but had the great personality and could turn on the charm. So when stardom came his way, he was really young. He was good looking. It was like, bam, here you go. He had the name, Vida. It's like everything worked, and it just, boom, he became an actual American sports star.
Without a question. We just got a small taste of what was to come at the end of 1970. I think he maybe had a half a dozen starts. I can't remember. I can't remember if he threw a one-hitter, no-hitter or something in there, but he had a couple of really good games in the few starts he had at the end. I think maybe he got called up the last month of the season there in 1970. And, of course, came in 1971 with Dick Williams showing up as our new manager. And he just had such a live arm. I mean, the ball just exploded up there. And 71, he was almost literally unhittable. I mean, he had a great curveball and just the fastball that exploded. And like you said, he was such a great character on top of all that stuff. He always had a smile on his face, and it was just a lot of fun to be around. He was another one of those guys. We had so many of them, Catfish, and Reggie was super. all of us that sort of in the group there that knew each other, couldn't pull any crap on each other because we knew each other from the time we were teenagers, and it just worked.
You knew you were a big deal when you were on the road and people were paying to come see you from the opposing town. That's when you know you were a big deal.
Well, I think in '71 we led the major leagues in attendance on the road. I mean, I think we drew 2 or 3 million people. I mean, every time we played on the road that year, we were packing the stands, especially when Vida pitched. And it was incredible. It really was, the turnout and how he handled it and got through that year and really didn't have a drop off. It was amazing.
Well, you talk about you guys coming up together. It's so special that it's something that's lost in professional sports. I understand free agency and it's great for players and for them financially for all these years, but the relationships that we just see in every sport, the player movement, you just don't have what you guys had. Just talk about what that meant as young men. You get brought together and you spend all those years together. You grow up together. You grow as professionals. You grow as husbands. You grow as fathers. Just talk about what that period of time was like in baseball for you guys.
Well, like I said, it was so great because we all signed in that early period, went through the minor leagues together. When you're in the minor leagues, you all try to live together, especially one that we're married. And my wife Sharon and I got married in 1966 in Modesto. We played there, and of course we had Reggie and Duncan and Fingers, LaRussa. I think there was 12 or 14 guys on that Modesto team that went to the big leagues. And the next year we all together went to Birmingham, Alabama, and played baseball down there. And we all lived out in an apartment complex and had to have team parties together, which we had a few ruckuses over that, but that's another story. And anyway, we survived playing ball in the South, and Reggie and I, went up and down. So I think I started the season in '67 actually, that left fielder in Kansas City, got sent down after the first month and played there. And of course, Reggie and Duncan and I went up and down a few times. And so we all, lived together. So the wives are together when we were on the road. And then, the next year we move into the Bay Area with Oakland in '68. And I know, Tennis and Fosse and Bando, myself, a bunch of us all lived out in the Danville area, Walnut Creek area, rode to the ballpark every day, took turns driving. The wives would pick each other up and go to the game together. And then, it was just a big family thing. Like you said, you don't see those many years that we spent doing those things, together. We take turn watching our kids. If they had a special, anniversary or something, we'd bring the kids over to our house and we watch them and vice versa. And like I said, you get so close to the guys that, it was, I'm looking back at 1976 when Raleigh and I and Vida got sold. And I never remember going into that clubhouse that night. And my equilibrium was totally screwed up. I mean, going from the A's one day in the same ballpark to Red Sox for Raleigh and myself, I 13 years, I guess I've been with A's by then. It was so hard to imagine going anywhere else. And again, that's one of those great things from playing that many years together that you get that close.
Do you have a picture of you or Raleigh ever in a Red Sox uniform?
I've got a few stuck away someplace. Yeah, I've had people send them to me of various, pictures of us there. And, we ended up not playing that night. And of course, the commissioner overturned all 3 of our trades or sales, I should say. And so it was definitely a shock. It was very strange to all of a sudden put on a different uniform.
You're on a team that you never played for.
Exactly. It was strange. Daryl Johnson was DJ was the manager of the Red Sox, and he lived out not too far from us, and actually went duck hunting with him quite a few times in the off season. So he and his wife were good friends of ours, and he told me, he said, somehow, some way, I'm going to get your butt over here, and I'm not quite sure how he got the owner to go for that, but it would. I think if that trade would have stayed, and I can't imagine the Red Sox and the Yankee battles back then with having the Raleigh Fingers coming out of the bullpen.
Well, I'll tell you what, I know for the fans, these reunions, and I know 72, you had the flight problems, but I know for the fans, it's a big deal, but what it means to you guys. And that's the thing. I'm so glad Vida got to be there, and we get to cherish the moments, and you guys with your families being there in 73. And hopefully we're going to do it again for 1974. Cause we truly have to celebrate you guys, your time together as players and as champions. Truly cherish it. And because I know it means so much to you guys, because you can't say it enough, and we'll end on this, that you guys just weren't teammates, you were like brothers.
Well, we spend that much time together, and from an early age growing up and having children, and getting into your 30s, a lot of water under the bridge.
Well, it's always great to have you on. I hate to bring you on under these circumstances, but thank you so much for taking the time there in Florida. You've always been so good to us here on A's Cast. Be well, and let's talk later on during the season.
Okay, hopefully we'll see you in August. Plan on being out there for the guys going in August. So it's very nice of the A's to do all this and bring back the guys for the times that we have. So definitely looking forward to it. Thanks for having me on.
Take care, Joe.
Thank you. You too. God bless.
The great Joe Rudy, A's Hall of Famer, 3-time World Series champion, class act. Can't say it enough. And at some point, I don't know when we're going to do this, but we're going to tell you the story. We were very fortunate. We had a suite there in Mount Davis. So all the suites were set up for the players and their families. Talk about the 73 reunion. We had our own suite where they were bringing the players in. And in a little bit, we'll tell the story as I'm interviewing Reggie Jackson. They bring Vida Blue in a wheelchair. And then after the interview, Vida ends up standing up and getting to see Vida and Reggie Jackson interact. As it was very obvious they hadn't seen each other in a long, long time. I mean, wouldn't you say, Cody, it was as they say, a priceless moment?
Oh yeah, both their reactions, especially Reggie, because Reggie's eyes just lit up when he saw Vida walk in. So it was good to see all of them. It was really good to see Vida. I know it's unfortunate because we had no idea that a few weeks later this would happen, but it was good to see him and all those guys get to see each other again when celebrating team 50 years later.
Well, if you're going to have a show like this, you got to have somebody that has the historical perspective. And, we like to bring them on for a lot of different things, but I think today was a day that we had to have Marty Lurie on because no one knows this game. No one knows Bay Area baseball. No one knows the game of baseball, the history of it, the history of the A's, the history of the Giants, which Vida Blue is a big part of. He is a Bay Area radio Hall of Famer. The great Marty Lurie is with us here on A's Cast Live. It's a tough day, Marty, but I think we all knew Vida well enough that he'd want us to celebrate his life, and I think that's what we need to do today.
Well, that's what Vida did in his whole life. He celebrated it. He brought such magnetism to the room. When you look at the heart of those teams, and it's just what a lineup today. I don't know why I'm on with this lineup. This is amazing just to hear Joe Rudy talk. But Vida, what he did in 1971 sort of got everybody going because they turned into world champions. In 71, of course, they lost to the Orioles in the playoffs. But what Vida accomplished in 71 and the way he did it and the way he captured the whole country and the Bay Area and the team, he was the mega star. It wasn't Reggie, it wasn't Sal Bando, it wasn't Gene Tennis, wasn't Joe Catfish or any of those people in 1971. It was Vida Blue. And Vida Blue was just the part of this team that became nationally known. And then things happened after that where they won some World Series. Of course, a dynasty happened. But what Vida brought to the table was this authenticity that, wow, this guy is amazing. This is one of the best pitchers we've ever seen in our lives. And he's part of the Oakland A's. And then they went from there and, of course, won the championship. So for me, Vida brought something special to the ball club. When he came up in 1970, Chris, he threw a one-hitter against Kansas City, and he said, okay, how about the next game? A no-hitter against Minnesota. And that was 1970, so we couldn't wait to see this kid. And then he comes back in 71 and is just fabulous. Goes to the All-Star game and starts that game, and all the comments about him, like on Time magazine and this magazine and that magazine. He was a national treasure. And what gets me about him is that was the beginning of the Oakland A's dynasty, when Vida stood up and said, hey, I'm the best in the world and my team is the best too.
And it's tough to tell the younger crowd because magazines are not a big deal. But back in those days, when you're talking Time, you're talking Newsweek, Sports Illustrated, Baseball Digest, all that kind of stuff. I mean, he was on Ebony too, but Time and Newsweek, the circulation was so unbelievable. And to have him as a young African-American pitcher pitching for the Oakland A's on the cover, the name Vida Blue was unique. He became a household name. He was a star. I heard President Obama was talking about when he was growing up, that all of a sudden, like, he was into baseball, and even though he was a White Sox fan, it was like Vida Blue. I mean, when you have the president of the United States talking about, I grew up a big Vida Blue fan, for everything that's going on in our Oakland world, I think it's hard for people to realize how big of a star, a household name, no cable television, no internet, no social media, and he was a bona fide American sports star.
Well, and not only that, but he put Oakland on the map. Don't forget, the ball club got here in 1968. So it's 1969, 1970, they're getting a little bit better. And then in 1971, he put Oakland on the map. Who knew about the Oakland A's at that point? In 71, they win the division, and Vida Blue was the star. He was the national star of this ball club. And I'll look, if you went to games, and I got to the Bay Area in May of 1972. Now, of course, Vida has the dispute, the holdout with Charlie Finley at that point. And, Charlie says, well, I'm not going to sign you. And Vida says, all right, I'm going to sell plumbing supplies. So now he's not playing for half the season. Yeah, that's what he said. It was crazy. It was crazy. Now, here's Vida Blue, and the season he comes off of, and Charlie's not going to pay him. All right. So meanwhile, he then gets signed, and now he's going through a spring training, whatever it is, and now he's getting ready to pitch. Well, Charlie would have these half-price nights on Monday night, and you'd have like 50,000 people there. And I think I can remember maybe the first game I ever went to at the Oakland Coliseum, and it had to be the summer of 1972. I went to see Vida pitch, and it was 50,000 people there. 50,000 or 40,000, whatever the capacity was, it was filled up. And I sat down the right field line. The sun was in my eyes. I was right by the foul pole on the second deck in the right field line, that little part of the deck that went over onto the field. Couldn't see anything, but I couldn't wait to get to the park for the electricity and the excitement of Vida Blue. And that's how I got initiated into Oakland A's baseball in 1972. And then the big thing about Vida, people have to remember, 72 was kind of a lost year for him because he didn't have a spring training and he didn't obviously pitch very much during the year. But when they played the Tigers in the playoffs, it was a tremendous playoff. This is where Campy throws the bat at Laren LeGros and Billy Martin, and then, it's a crazy Willie Horton. The whole situation was nuts. Well, it came down to Game 5 in Detroit. Campy had to be with a police escort in the hotel, and it was just nuts. So Blue Moon gets the start in Game 5, and it's huge. This is to win the pennant, and it's in Detroit. And the place was going nuts because of the whole Campy Laren LeGros incident. Well, Blue Moon goes about 6 innings, and then he couldn't pitch anymore. The emotion of the moment overcame Blue Moon. He couldn't pitch. Well, who did they go to? Vida Blue. And that's when Vida Blue took the ball, bailed out Blue Moon, his friend, and went the remainder of that game and put the A's into the World Series. and the rest is history. But 72 for Vida, those innings that he pitched in Game 5 against the Tigers, maybe the biggest innings he pitched in his life.
Well, I just think of the historical part of his career, and you have to talk about the All-Star game, as the All-Star game back then really meant something. The country cared about the All-Star game. They cared who won the All-Star game. The players cared. It was National League versus American League. They were two different entities. The National League had its own president. The American League had its own president. They were different, and they were coming to play. And Vida Blue started the game as a. He started the game as a giant. He won the game as an American League pitcher and a National League pitcher. So we could talk World Series awards. He also has his own All-Star history.
Well, the 71 All-Star game was unbelievable. You got to remember, Vida grew up in Mansfield, Louisiana, and his dad died when he was in high school. Vida was a great quarterback. He could have been a fabulous quarterback in those days. His grandfather used to sit on the porch and tell him about Jackie Robinson and about the integration of baseball and things like that. We're talking about Mansfield, Louisiana here. And Vida, when he got to pitch in 1971, there's some interviews with him about facing Willie Mays and facing Hank Aaron and facing Clemente. And Vida, just to hear his voice and know the pride he had and the honor he had of pitching for the American League against those players that he grew up watching and idolizing and understanding who they were and what they meant to the game was huge. And he went out and started that All-Star game as a 21-year-old. Unbelievable. It really is it's still one of the great moments of baseball history when you look at the lineups of those two teams and how many Hall of Famers were there. And of course, we remember the home run that Reggie hit off of Doc Ellis that not only went out of the stadium, but hit the transformer that was not down the line. It was in like right center field. That's how far Reggie hit it. He didn't pull it down the line because people did that. They knocked it out of Norm Cash, could hit it out and all that. But Reggie hit it in right center and hit the transformer. That ball would have gone, who knows, 550 feet, whatever it was. But it was a great game, and Vida started that game. And I know in his heart what it meant to him to be pitching against Willie Mays. And, of course, he had heard so much about Willie from his family.
And by the way, happy birthday, Willie Mays. I mean, you talk about the greatest living player that we have. Was it happy 92? Amazing.
Yep. Yeah, 92 on Saturday. And, again, like Vida, Philippe Alou taught me something and taught Ron Wotus something. And I talk to Will all the time, on the show on Sunday mornings. And he said, show me the man first, then the player. And I think that applied to Willie and that applied to Vida. They were exceptional men in their own way, in different ways of relating to the world. But they were amazing people. And then you look at what they accomplished in baseball. It's just beyond belief. For Willie, people ask me, what was the best thing about Willie? I think running the bases. Chris, and I lived in Florida in the 1960s, and, I didn't see Giant games on TV. They were at Candlestick. They put on games.
You didn't have the baseball package? You didn't have the app back in those days?
There was nothing.
You had to read? You had to read a book about this stuff?
If you were lucky, you got to see. If you were lucky, you got to see a game on Saturday. But you'd never see a game very rarely from Candlestick because of the time change and all that. So what I said to Willie, and I did so many shows with him, and he chose me to be his interviewer, which is the biggest honor, I think, of my life, that Willie chose me to do that. And we did a number of shows in front of thousands of people. And I said to Willie, were you any good? And he says, I was all right. And I said, okay. And so I said to myself, what did I remember about Willie? And it was the All-Star games. Willie Mays took over the All-Star game. He took it over. You watched it. He would lead off. He'd get a triple. He would steal a base. He'd hit a home run. It didn't matter. Walter Alston was the manager of the All-Star team. And he would say to Willie, Willie, what do you think about the lineup today? And Willie would say, Walter, lead me off, hit Hank Aaron second and Clemente third, and I don't care what you do after that. And that was the way Willie was. And, he gave Alvin Dark the signals of what pitches to throw from center field. He just took over a ball game, but it was his base running. I did a show with Harry Callis, remember, the wonderful broadcaster for the Phillies. And Harry worked with the Houston Astros in the 60s. And I said in those days, I was doing it for the A's, memories of the game. I did a memory of the game every show. And I had Harry on. I said, Harry, what's your favorite baseball memory? And he said it was Willie Mays and running the bases. That was what Harry Callis said to me. And this was probably in 2004, 3, somewhere in that range when I was doing those shows. So Willie just touched everybody he was dynamic with the power, the speed, the arm. He threw somebody out at home, Maury Wills, threw somebody out at third. This is the same game. And had to throw to second to get the runner on second, but Tito Fuentes dropped the ball. And otherwise, he would have had someone thrown out at just about every base. So that's what people think about Willie, and that's what they remember about him. But these two players, Vida, what he accomplished as 209 wins, and what he accomplished in 1971. And if it was a different time, different ownership, different union, different rights for the players, who knows what Vida would have accomplished. But Charlie really took the heart out of him by not paying him in 1972. And that's something I think that Vida still did regret for his whole life.
And you two did a famous video together.
Oh, yeah, boy, that is interesting. I got a text from Vince Cotroneo the other day.
Same thing from me, if you remember back.
Yeah. Let
me tell the story real quick. So I'm in Kansas City with the Raiders.
All right.
And we're I can't remember what time of the year it was, but so I'm in Kansas City. And obviously there is a little significance between my family and Jackie Robinson, as Jackie Robinson in his very first at bat grounded out my grandfather. And there's something about it in the Negro League Museum in Kansas City. And I've always wanted to go, and it's a Saturday. I got nothing to do, so I immediately go over. I'm at the Negro League Museum, and I'm going through that first part of the timeline of it, right? And then all of a sudden I hear two voices, and I'm looking around. I'm like, that's Marty Lurie. And then all of a sudden it's that high pitch. I'm like, that's Vida Blue. And it's like weird. I'm like in Kansas City, and I'm hearing Marty Lurie, and I walk into this room, and there's this video that you guys do, and I immediately texted you going, I'm listening to you at the Negro League Museum in Kansas City.
I can't tell you how many people have done that. And the story was Crime of the Century, and it's a story of Lester Rodney, who was a sports writer who advocated for the integration of baseball in the 30s and in the early 40s. And he was never really recognized for what he did because he was the sports editor of the Daily Worker, the communist paper. And because of that, he didn't get the recognition from the other sports writers. But he was the one who pushed the hardest for the integration of baseball, Lester Rodney. And it's a great story. So they did a documentary about it. And they asked me to be the voice of Lester Rodney. So we had some of his columns that he wrote for the Daily Worker about why baseball should integrate, challenging. Judge Landis, where are you? Baseball, why don't you grow up? Baseball, why don't you recognize African-American players? These kind of columns. And I would read from the column. That was my voice for Lester Rodney. And Vida was the voice of Satchel Paige. So we would go back and forth, and they would tell the story. And that's how the video came together. But it plays at the Negro League Museum. It is on a loop there. And I can't tell you how many people have heard it. And again, when I think of all the things that have happened in my life around baseball, there's so many honors. That's right up there with the biggest honor as well, being chosen to be the voice of Lester Rodney. I said, why me? They said, well, he was from New York. You're from New York. You love baseball. He loved baseball. And I got to meet Lester Rodney. I did a nice interview with him, and I played it on the A's show. I did so many interviews. But that was a good moment. That was a nice moment.
I think about Vida as he got older. And Vida did a lot of television, did a lot of radio.
Yeah.
And you can speak to this. A lot of the people that he worked with, Vida Blue was just an older player that they kept hearing about. He won the MVP, he won the Cy Young, he won the World Series. And somehow that can really ruffle older players when they're working with younger people who didn't see them play. They don't know about their greatness. Vida was so generous and kind, even with the young people who really didn't know how great he was. Just talk about as he got older and he started to do TV, and he was great on TV because, he's Vida Blue. He had charisma. He had the great sense of humor. People don't mention that enough. He had an outstanding sense of humor, but he was just always so cool to everybody when a lot of older players that might have kind of ruffled their feathers that they're working with these young people who really don't know how good they were.
No, he never big leagued anybody.
Oh,
that's it. He never big leagued anybody. He was genuine. He was a genuine person. When we met, I met him first in 1987 when I was doing Giants Vision. I was programming the board in 1987, going from court in a suit to candlestick, doing this stuff. I had played softball with the people who ran Giants Vision, and I got to meet Vida. And one of my favorite pictures is Vida with my son, Evan, who's about 9 years old at that point. And Ev's sitting there, and Vida's got his arm around him, and just a big, happy feeling of the two of them in that picture. You could tell how genuine Vida was and how excited Evan was to be in a picture with Vida. And that's who he was. It just didn't matter who you were. He would kid around. He did the ad for me for Nations on the show. That of course, that. And Nations would give out these little certificates, for free hamburger, free strawberry pie, whatever. And I'd give him the Vida. And then he would turn around and give them the kids. He would give them to other people. And that's what he did. There was just a real feeling. You know how you talk to people and sometimes you talk to them and they're looking through you and they're not really. He was engaged in the moment with you. Whenever you talked with him, you were engaged with him. Raph does my show like Cody does yours. Cody does a fabulous job. And Raph would be there and Vida would come into the studio. And, Raph is a big Chicago Bears fan. And Vida would go, "Hey, how about your Bears today?" And, he was always something. There was a guy in the gym who talked too much, and Vida said, "We're going to call you the mayor from now on." There was just, if you didn't tell me Vida Blue was a major leaguer, I wouldn't know it. But he was a major league person. And that's what I'll always remember about him.
I had a conversation with him one time, because basically Vida was so unique being a star. And that he starred for the A's and the Giants. But later on, everything was really, he worked for the Giants. He worked around the Giants. I know there was a part of him, and we had that conversation. It did hurt that the A's, way back when, didn't celebrate their former players, especially from the 70s, because really all that should have been done on the other side of the bay. He was a 3-time World Series champion, the MVP, the Cy Young, the All-Star game. All of his true greatness was really with the A's. I know, and, I'm not trying to divide A's versus Giants or anything. It's just I know that kind of bugged him that later on everything wasn't about A's. Everything he did was just Giants.
Well, it's the way the A's marketed in those days. And I've said this so many times. You think about a fantasy camp. How about going with Raleigh Fingers and Joe Rudy and Sal Bando and Campy Campaneris and Catfish and Ken Holtzman? I mean, think about it. Those were mega stars. The history of the A's franchise in early years of Oakland in the 70s are mega stars. The Giants did not have people like that. The Giants celebrated Mays, McCovey, Marichal, Perry, Cepeda. They were gone in the 60s, but these guys took over in the 70s, but the A's never quite marketed them properly. I would love to be in a fantasy camp with those guys, and I was.
No doubt.
I was. I mean, to be there, I never understood why the A's couldn't market their history better than they did. It was just a crime, honestly, that they didn't.
But I do think what we do now that we finally, we just honored 72, 73, and I was so happy now that Vida's passed, just to think, it wasn't just a few weeks ago, we honored the 73 team. The fact that he got to be with his brothers, his teammates one more time before he passed, for them and for him. I know he was sick, he was not doing well, but it meant so much for Vida one last time to be with these guys.
It was huge. It was huge. And I haven't seen Vida for a while and haven't talked to him for a while. But through Bill Lasky, I would hear how Vida was doing. I knew he was very, very, very sick. And for him to show up and to be part of 1973, he had lost a lot of weight. He was probably down to 140, 150 pounds at that point. But to be there and be part of that celebration was fabulous. And just to see some of the pictures and to hear your description with Cody of when Vida and Reggie hugged, it was chilling for me to hear it. Gave me goosebumps to hear it. So those are the moments of life where baseball, we are a community. We're a family. Everything that goes on within the world of baseball touches everyone. This is our community. Vida Blue was a major part of our community, and to see how the community has embraced him now and has supported everyone who has such grief about his passing is wonderful. And then to hear how the community of his friends and teammates embraced him on that day makes it all worthwhile. That's who we are. We're a baseball community, no matter what happens.
Yeah, and at 3:00, I did a sit-down interview with him, which I think is probably his last sit-down official interview. We're going to play it at 3:00. People will be able to watch it, listen to it. Such a special man. Well, you know how much you've meant to my career. You know what you've meant to the A's fan base. You know what you've meant to the Giants fan base. I mean, I think it's bigger than that. I think it's what you've meant to the entire Bay Area baseball fan base, because there's the people that remember AAA baseball and what baseball used to be like, and the history of the Giants and the Dodgers in New York, or the A's in Kansas City and Philadelphia. You've been really the only one on a regular basis for all these years to have the answers, to have the interviews, to have the thoughts. What you've meant to Bay Area baseball. That's why you got a bobblehead, and it's why you're a Bay Area Radio Hall of Famer. What you've meant to all of us means so much.
It's very kind of you to say that, and no one has done more for A's radio, TV, information for the fans than you. And I've told you this for years. And I did shows from 1998 through 2009. I was on every single day, producing my own show, doing my own thing, but no one can come close to what you've done of continuing the story of the Oakland A's under all sorts of circumstances. You've never wavered, and you've shown your love for baseball. So you're really the guy, Chris. You're the guy of the moment, and you got your pitch. You didn't miss it, and the A's are so lucky to have you there. They really are.
I gotta tell you, that means a lot. That means a lot.
Oh, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. There is no one who's and I listen to you after a game, and you and the captain kick it around, and it could be the most miserable game in the world. And then you come on, and I call the captain, Ken Korak, the captain, because he took over for Bill King. When Bill died, Ken had to step up. He had to be the captain of the ship. So I call him the captain. But to listen to you guys make sense of a game for the fans and not complain about this and that, but to talk baseball with an uplifting voice, and Ken with his voice, I think it's a highlight for me. I almost wait for that part for when he can be with you to recap the game. And you bring that to the table, Chris, and there's no one. I've been around A's baseball for 50 years. I worked as hard as I could from 1996 to 2009 with the A's, for the A's, doing all the shows, but nobody comes close to the heart of what Oakland A's baseball like you. And it's really pretty special, man. Pretty special.
No, it's whether the times we're in now. I mean, all the years, all the stations, all the drama, and everything that's going on now. It's hard not to be emotional. I mean, it's not easy, as you know. It's really not to do it every day and to try and keep it in between the lines and the players and there's a lot that goes into it. I don't think people really understand. Your words are very kind.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and they'll never understand what it is to put these shows together and make sure someone shows up on time to have your content ready, because it's entertainment, and to be able to come on with that enthusiasm, because that's what baseball is. People want to know they're going to go to the game with a friend, and that's what you bring to this broadcast. When Cody calls or you call and say, "Well, would you like to be on?" Absolutely. Because I'm talking baseball with a friend. And that's what the great broadcasters can do, the great people in baseball can do. It keeps us together because we enjoy it every day. Every day we get another game. It's another story. But I get to do it with you, or I get to listen to Ken. And it's huge to be able to do that. And folks should understand it is not easy to do it. I've been doing it for 27 years. And I'm telling you, it's my own show, and I got to book the guests and get the guests and do the whole thing, set up the equipment and all that stuff. And it was crazy, but we do it because we love the fans. I like the fans, and you like the fans too. I love when you talk to the fans and they call up. You like the fans. I like getting the calls. I like to talk to the fans, and that's what you bring to the table also. And they're lucky, Chris. They're lucky to have you. And you have the baseball roots. Your grandfather, MVP of the National League, Bob Elliott, in 1947. He was a Pacific Coast League star. He was a World Series star with the Boston Braves. And, I mean, come on. With that background, you better live up to it.
Yeah. Thank you, my friend. You be well.
Anytime. You know that.
The great Marty Lurie. Baseball. You think about it, Bay Area Radio Hall of Famer, but he's bigger than that. He made me cry.
Yeah, I haven't even been able to do that, and I'm not even. That was very nice of Marty to say that.
Yeah, that was emotional. He's a special man, no doubt. Not to say our next guest's not a special man. It's like from one historian to another. How are you, David Feldman?
Yeah, I'm not going to make you cry.
Yeah, don't make me cry.
No. But here's the thing, and I love Marty. I've known Marty for a long time. Marty, you talk baseball for a living. Nobody cares how hard it is. You're fine. You know what I'm saying? You're not breaking a sweat, Marty. You're all right.
We're not getting a sunburn, and we're not getting calluses.
That's what there's no heavy lifting.
Where are you today, by the way? What are you doing? What is your world? Are you Pac-12? Are you NBA? What are you doing today?
I am at the Turner Broadcasting Studios in Atlanta, getting ready to do the TBS Tuesday night game of the week tomorrow. They have the Red Sox versus the Braves. So it's a lot of buzz going on here because obviously the Warriors are on TNT tonight. So Shaq and Charles and Kenny, they're all walking around the halls here somewhere.
If people don't know, it's amazing. You fly out to Atlanta, no matter where the game is, you fly out to Atlanta once a week to do this game.
Yeah. It's, I'd rather be at the ballpark, but this is the new reality that we have now. We do a lot of remote productions. And so every week, no matter where the Tuesday night game is, I'm in Atlanta. I'm in the Atlanta studios. I'm starting to recognize the flight attendants on the planes, the TSA agents. They're all giving me a big hi. It's been a lot of fun. I have no idea what time it is, but other than that, it's great.
We've been talking about Vida Blue, and we'll get into Vida, but it's something that I've been addressing because I'm like Old Man River when talking about pitching, but Vida helps me explain this. it's like historical figures. There's certain things that they did that make them historical figures, right? And there's certain things that lead to other things. Like people want to tell you wins don't matter, but now I start looking at a guy like Vida, and we look at innings pitched, we look at strikeouts. Like to become an all-time great, you've got to do things. You've got to have this volume, which all of that helps lead to wins, but we'll stay away from wins. And speaking of all the different sports that you've done for all these different years, I've been saying, every game has an object, whether it's a basketball, it's a baseball, it's a football, it's a hockey puck. The stars are the guys that handle the object. They're the stars. When we're watching the Warrior game, the guys who have the ball the most, Steph Curry, LeBron James, they're the stars, right? We see it in football. The quarterback's handling the football to the running back, to the wide receivers. It's the stars. We're getting to a point in baseball where the guy that handles the ball, it's now just an assembly line of no-name relievers. And to me, when we look at, how we sell the game, how we view the game, how people love the game, people from all around the country wanted to see this fireballer, this young left-hander. His name's Vida Blue, just the name alone and the stats. I want to pay my money to go watch Vida Blue pitch. I don't care if my team's the Tigers or it's the Twins or it's the Yankees or whatever. Man, Vida Blue put butts in the seats on the road because he was a starting pitcher. I'm afraid for baseball. This young generation like Cody, I don't think they get it. Like the guy who handles the ball should be important, and somehow baseball, where historically with starters, we don't even really have star closers anymore. It's like baseball's changed so much. We're not going to 20 years from now, will we have like a Vida Blue?
No, and what worries me is what we saw last week with Mason Miller. Not the fact that he got pulled with a no-hitter after 7 innings. That offended me. I understand why, because that's the world we live in now, the way we protect these players. But this is what kind of bothered me. Is Mason Miller thought he was coming out after 6. He didn't even think he was going to get the 7th, because that's how we are teaching starting pitchers now. We are not teaching starting pitchers to go 9 innings. Starting pitchers have this imaginary number of 100, right? That was just sort of plucked out of, that's going to be the magic number, 100. And if you get to 100 pitches, well, then you're going to be done. And that's the mindset pitchers are being brought up in. And that's like okay now. For me, that's not okay. If you're the starting pitcher, if you were a Vida Blue or a Dave Stewart or a Tim Hudson, you were going to go 9 innings because that's your job. You were to start the game and you end the game. That's what you're trying to do, and that's your mindset. And you started to see it change over the last 20, 25 years where, oh, no, well, we got to go to the bullpen. We only got 100 pitches. I don't like that mindset. And I didn't like Mason Miller coming out. And this is maybe a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to throw a no-hitter as a rookie. Something Vida Blue did, right? In 1970, he threw a no-hitter in September. You don't know if he's going to get that chance again. It could be a special evening. But more concerning to me was his mindset was like, yeah, I thought I was coming out after 6. I just can't. That's the type of thinking that I can't get behind.
You grew up a kid in Oakland. Your favorite team was the Oakland Athletics. You're a baseball guy. No offense to the other teams in the Bay Area, but you're a baseball guy. Even though NBA comes around, you act like you're an NBA guy. I know you're a baseball guy. Vida Blue, when you're a little kid, Vida Blue's a star.
Vida Blue, first it's just the name, Vida Blue. And that's the name as a kid you're just going to grab onto. It's just such a unique name, Vida Blue. And then you hear the story about him. For me, I was too young to remember 71, but by the time I'm a baseball fan in 73, 74, I've heard about 71. And I heard about how dominating it was. And I've seen the highlights from the All-Star game at Tiger Stadium and the blue blazer and the magazine covers and everything that Vida brought. The first game that I remember going to as a fan, bat day in 1973, Vida Blue pitched. And you saw this guy on the mound. He looked larger than life. He had the high stirrups. He looked taller than he was, the blue blazer. He was magical. And he was such a good pitcher. And for a kid in the 70s, I mean, the name, the success, winning the championships, Vida Blue was a whole package for a baseball fan in the 70s.
No doubt about it. And, just what was that like? You're growing up an A's fan. Your team's in the World Series every single year. You've got stars. I mean, think about Reggie Jackson. Think about Sal Bando was a great player. I mean, we just had Joe Rudi on. He's a 3-time World Series champion. He's an all-star. Gene Tennis is like a King Kong in the World Series. Raleigh Fingers is doing things I wish we appreciated more. It was truly amazing. Catfish Hunter, Ken Holtzman, you go on and on and on. What was that like as a kid? You had like a utopia of baseball.
Yeah. I think it's what a lot of people, Warrior fans who are growing up now are going through, right? They think every year is going to be Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green.
Niner fans in the 80s.
It's Joe Montana. It's Jerry Rice. Giant fans in the early part of this. It's Buster Posey. It's Tim Lincecum. It's Matt Cain. They don't know any better. And as a kid in the 70s, you're like, well, this happens every year. But guess what? Eventually it changes. And I think what's interesting about Vida Blue is Vida Blue was really the last remaining guy. He pitched for the 1977 A's. Okay, everybody was gone after 76. So what happened? Why is Vida still there in 1977? Everybody was a free agent. They left because Vida got screwed once again by Charlie Finley, right? In 1976, which is supposed to be the walk year for these free agents, Burt Campaneris and Joe Rudi and Sal Bando, they're going to play out their contract. The reverse clause was going to be eliminated, and they were going to be free agents. Somehow, Charlie Finley convinced Vida Blue to sign a 3-year contract in 1976. A 3-year contract. And Vida was asked, why would you do that? You don't even like the man, Charlie Finley. He said, well, he made me a promise he wouldn't trade me, and I like being in Oakland. He goes, Vida Blue said, I like being in Oakland. I like it here. And he promised not to trade me. So what did Charlie Finley do the night that Vida Blue signed this contract? He tried to sell him to the New York Yankees that night. And the reason why the Yankees wanted guaranteed that they were getting Vida Blue for that year and 2 more. And it also, so this sort of starts to sound familiar. It was going to lower the worth of the Oakland A's. The A's were being evaluated at about a $12 million worth. Charlie Finley's trying to sell the team to Marvin Davis in Denver, the Denver Oilmen. You get rid of Vida Blue in his contract, the worth of the A's goes down to $10 million, and it makes it more sellable. Does this all sound a little familiar? So Vida Blue does not get sold to the Yankees because Bowie Kuhn puts the kibosh on that. Best interest of baseball was his move. So now here's Vida playing the 77 season for the A's, a bad A's team. We go into 78. Vida's still a member of the A's. Charlie Finley tries to sell him to the Cincinnati Reds. He's gonna trade him for Dave Revering, who was a minor leaguer, eventually did come to the A's for Dick Bear, but he's going to try it again. And once again, Bowie Kuhn says, nope, best interest of baseball, not allowing this trade. Gratefully, finally, Charlie Finley was able to work out a trade with the San Francisco Giants, a multiplayer deal where it's Vida Blue and one other player going to the Giants. The A's get a whole dugout full of players back from the Giants. And they asked Vida, what does it feel like to finally be traded? And quoting the great Martin Luther King Jr., he says, free at last, free at last. Thank God I'm free at last. But Charlie and Vida and as a kid, right, Vida's your guy, and they keep trying to get rid of him. And you couldn't understand why you're trying to get rid of Vida Blue. Luckily, we had him for 1 extra year.
So we now look at starting pitchers a little different. We give a lot more leeway with certain numbers, and you start to look at Vida Blue's numbers, knowing that Charlie Finley, as you just mentioned, messed with Vida's career. Obviously in 72, he's a young man at the height of his powers. I think of the 1 year he's suspended, what was that, 84? Was it 84?
Yeah, he missed the 84 season.
Right? So, I mean, if you don't have this disruption of time, wasn't because of Tommy John surgery, wasn't because of injuries, if you didn't have this disruption of time in his career, would he have a plaque in Cooperstown?
He would have gotten a lot more support, definitely, if he had, a 1972 season. He still made 23 starts in 72, but he went 6-10, And it wasn't, it had left everybody with a bad taste in their mouth, right? He was going to go work for the plumbing company. He's a plumbing executive there. It just left a bad taste. Still, it comes back in 73 with a 21 season, 22 wins in 75. 18-game winner in 76, goes to the Giants, wins 18 games, leads a team that was really not thought of to a third-place finish, and they're only 6 games behind the Dodgers in 78 with the Giants. You guys talked about his all-star appearances. I mean, he started the game for both leagues. Yeah, he had a chance to be a Hall of Fame pitcher. If he doesn't lose that 72 type of season, if he doesn't lose 84, he would have had a chance. He would have had numbers that were similar to Catfish Hunter. And again, the star power that he would have had, because he was Vida Blue. He definitely would have been the star. And the other thing that gets me, and they talk about his postseason career, and they say, well, he wasn't that good in the postseason. But the thing is, he had 3 of the biggest postseason games during that A's run. Game 5 in 72 in the ALCS. Blue Moon Odom only goes the first 5. So Vida finishes the final 4 innings of that game, shutout style, saving a 1-run lead, saving the game. I mean, the A's go to the World Series because Vida blew those 4 shutout innings. Okay, now post-game, he does the choke symbol to Blue Moon Odom to get in a fight in the clubhouse, but that's swinging A's. What are you going to do? Those things happen.
Par for the course.
But then, and then game 1 of 72, he comes out of the bullpen and gets the save in game 1, another 1-run game. So 2 huge saves. And then, of course, the ALCS game in 73 where he throws a shutout. Just big moments. So he gets a little knock on his postseason career, but it's better than people think. He had a couple bad starts, game 6 and 72 in the World Series after being in the bullpen for the whole postseason. All of a sudden, we're going to start him in game 6, and it was terrible. Other than that, he was actually a very good postseason pitcher and a spectacular one when they needed him most in 72.
A lot of people look back at that era of baseball and you say, it can never happen again. Well, they're kind of right, because when you look at, like, you can even talk about the Big Red Machine, or you look at the A's. I mean, these A's were all brought up together. They weren't guys that were traded for. They weren't guys. I mean, you're talking about draft picks from Kansas City coming to Oakland. These guys came up together. So as crazy and nutty as Charlie Finley was, he built this team. Remember, Rick Monday could have been a part of this, obviously traded for Holtzman. But, I mean, it's pretty amazing. All the draft picks, all the signings, they just worked. Now, eventually they would all become very expensive, but you got to give credit. These are all homegrown. This dynasty is homegrown, which is incredible. We just really don't see that today.
Not as much, but the good teams are still built this way, I believe, through the farm system and guys coming up together. Charlie Finley was a tremendous talent evaluator. For all his other eccentricities and whatever else, he knew good ball players, and he knew what made a good team. And he understood when he had those core players that, a lot of them drafted when they were still in Kansas City and brings them to Oakland. And he knew he just had to fill around them. And he always was able to identify what they needed. You talk about Rick Monday. He knew they needed another starter to go with Vida and Catfish. So I'm going to give up my center fielder, my number 1 overall draft pick, to get Ken Holtzman, who's going to be a solid starter for the A's. And that worked out beautifully. Trading to get Ray Fosse. He's trading a young George Hendrick, an up-and-coming outfielder, power hitter. But I needed a catcher for this team, and I'm going to make that trade. We also needed to get Dave Duncan out of here, but that's another part of the story. Then getting Billy North, to be your center fielder in 73. He was so smart that way. But that's how good teams, to me, who come up together. Talk about Mulder, Hudson, Zito, right? These are all A's draft picks. That's why I do get excited when I look down at the farm now for the A's. And you see some of the guys we saw in spring training, and you saw Denzel Clark, and you saw Zach Geloff, Soderstrom. I think you see guys who are coming up together again. I think we're seeing that next generation of guys who are coming up together, playing together, learning how to win together. And when they all come up to the big leagues together, there's going to be a familiarity with it. And I think it's going to be a big thing. I think it's going to be the next successful A's team is going to be those guys because of the fact they're all coming up together.
Now, when you're walking around that building in Atlanta, do you actually see Shaq and Charles and everybody?
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, you can't miss Shaq.
No.
Shaq drives the tiniest car too. He has this very tiny car. He's basically they took out the front seat, so he drives it from the back seat because that's the only way he can fit in it.
He's like the largest. You remember what year was the All-Star game at Oracle? Was it 98?
It's a 2000.
2000.
The one Vince Carter won the dunk contest.
Yeah, was that 2000? So I remember doing a show with Tim Roy, and we're sitting there. It's the Saturday, and they're just coming out and shooting around and stuff. This before slam dunk and 3-point and all that. And Shaq was breakdancing and got on the ground and did like the turtle. And you're like, how is a man this size that athletic? It's crazy. And now that, Shaq's put on some pounds, he's actually lost weight, but it's crazy. Just, I think about his suits, how much fabric it takes just to make one of his suits. I mean, when you stand next to Shaq, it's crazy how large of a man he is.
He's so mammoth. And I remember it during his playing days, right? You used to remember Manute Bol, right? 7'7", but skinny as a beanpole.
Yeah.
And there were other players like that who were very tall, but so skinny. But now Shaq is this tall and this big. So on the basketball court, he kind of looked proportional. He walks off the court and you're going, oh my, this is a mountain of a man. And the other thing about Shaq, and I got to travel with the Lakers a little bit when he was with the Lakers, he is the nicest man. Oh my. I think maybe it comes from that he's always been bigger than life his entire life, right? People have always stared at him. And some people can go into a shell. I know a lot of NBA players who are very shy outside of the basketball arena because of just being stared upon. But Shaq he just loves it, and he's used to it, and he's great with people. I mean, if you get a chance to meet this guy, he is just as nice as can be. And genuinely just a nice, happy fella.
Kevin Garnett said it. He said, I want to thank Mama and Papa Shaq for the way they raised him, because if Shaq wasn't a nice guy, he would have hurt a lot of people.
Oh, my God. Here's my one Shaq story. We're on the plane. We're on the Laker plane. And they like to play cards on the Laker plane. And he came back, and he needed change. And he looked at me, and he goes, you look like you have small bills. Can you make change for me?
Oh, God. And Chuck, from what I understand, I've never interviewed him in my basketball days, but everybody seems to say Chuck's a pretty good dude.
Yeah, it seems to be. I mean, people love him here in Turner. And there's genuinely affection and love, and I think the other thing they like is that he's willing to make fun of himself. He's willing to go with any antics they want, and they want to drop stuff from the ceiling on him. They want him to chase Kenny back to he'll do anything they want. I think he's in a really good place here, and they love him here.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but are the Warriors in trouble?
No, if they lose tonight, yes, if they're down 3-1, but they've been down 2-1 before. I do trust the Warriors coaching staff and the adjustments they need to make. It's troublesome because the Warriors, this is what they've been all year. They've been a bad road team. They shoot poorly. They throw a lot of turnovers. They struggle. But if they can somehow just stop fouling, stop turning the ball over, I think they're going to be fine. I think they know how to beat the Lakers. It's just executing.
Well, I have a new project, a new idea I want to throw by you. When you're not doing, I don't know, Arizona State spring football games, when you're not doing random baseball games, when you're not doing NBA, when you have time for us back in this little baseball world here, let me know, because I have something I want to throw at you.
I want to hear it. Summer's coming. I'm going to be all yours during the summer.
You mean you're not going to be doing Dion in the spring football practices at Colorado for Pac-12 Network?
No, we take the summers off, Townie. So, and that doesn't look like I have any. I think the XFL and all that stuff's about ready to end. So it's going to be baseball and just it's all you.
Do you like anybody in the Pac-12 going into this year?
Football wise?
Yeah.
This is a stacked league. You have 6 returning quarterbacks who are all ballers, who are all winners, and then you have a couple transfer quarterbacks coming into the conference. This is going to be very, very tough league. You got the reigning Heisman Trophy winner at USC. You have another guy who's up for the Heisman, and Michael Penix Jr. at Washington, and Bo Nix at Oregon. This league is going to be this is the year for the Pac-12 to make a big stand and win those non-conference games in September, something they've struggled with. This is the year to watch out for them.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. Your reigning Heisman Trophy winner and the Trojans, their year gets ruined in week 0.
San Jose State, week 0.
Spartans are going down to the old Coliseum in Los Angeles. I will be there. I'm taking the day off. We're flying down. LAX, Uber over. Spartan Nation is going to take over the LA Coliseum, home of the 1984 Olympics.
You're going to see – that's going to be a great day, by the way, down there, because that's the first game, really the first game. He gets to play as a Heisman Trophy winner at his home stadium. It's going to be a packed house, week 0, all eyes on that game. It's going to be fantastic.
45,000 with probably about 2,000 San Jose State fans.
Sparty's going to travel.
I cannot. Are you going to work that game?
That could be a Pac-12 network game. There's been rumors. So we'll find out for sure the first week of June, but I'd love to. I think that'd be so much fun.
Dinner on me.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Thank you, buddy. Be well. Safe travels.
Thanks, Townie. Be well.
David Feldman, our A's historian in Atlanta, Georgia, for it's a Tuesday game on TBS. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Let's see what it is. We should probably take a break before Dave Stewart joins us.
Okay. If you want to talk greatness, Dave Stewart, A's Hall of Famer, next, right here on A's Cast Live.
With more sunshine returning, it's time to get outside and make the most of what Cinnabar Hills Golf Club has to offer, like 27 championship caliber holes tucked in the beautiful hills of San Jose. And take advantage of their amazing Bay Area views for your next special event. It's all for you at Cinnabar Hills Golf Club, an award-winning venue designed to peacefully take you away from the bustle of Silicon Valley. Go to CinnabarHills.com. That's CinnabarHills.com.
This is Chris Townsend. There are 2 things that are a must for me: comfort and style. Whether I'm playing golf, going to dinner, I've got to have the right feel. That's why I've partnered with Linksole, and you're going to love Linksole. They have just released their new spring line, new fabrics for their polos, lightweight and perfect for technical performance. Linksole also has new styles for their layers and hoodies with cool prints and seasonal colors. You know what they say in the big leagues: look good, play good. Go to Linksole.com. That's Linksole.com.
Chevron with Techron has unbeatable engine cleaning power, and it gives you unbeatable mileage for all kinds of unbeatable destinations, like time in the sun at the beach, or time in the sun riding roller coasters, or a day in the sun hiking mountains. Well, probably just one mountain would be enough for a day, but hiking a mountain is still an unbeatable choice for how to spend time. Download the Chevron app now to get unbeatable mileage at locations near you.
If you're looking for a great place to eat and watch games, go see our friends at the Chicken Pie Shop of Walnut Creek. The Chicken Pie Shop is one of the hottest restaurants in Walnut Creek. You're not going to find a better menu, and come try their world-famous chicken pie that has been served in Southern California for 86 years. Spacious indoor and outdoor dining, perfect for your next private party or corporate event. Don't forget free parking. For more information, go to chickenpieshopwc.com. That's chickenpieshopwc.com.
Unlock offers and receive exclusive in-game features by downloading the MLB Ballpark app for iPhone and Android today. Plus, get the latest information on game times, schedules, and more.
Thanks to the Xfinity 10G network, my little brother's friends won't leave our house. When I was their age, internet with basically no interruptions was a pipe dream.
You sound like my grandpa.
Now through April 23rd, new customers can get 200 megabit Xfinity internet during our limited time Xfinity 10G network launch celebration for just $25 a month for 2 years. Go to Xfinity.com/10G, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today. Requires paperless billing and autopay with stored bank account. Restrictions apply. Taxes and fees extra. After promo, regular rates apply to internet service and devices. Actual speeds vary.
Like sports, business is about winning. Championship decisions are business decisions based on what it takes to help your company win. And that's why there's UBO Business Services, specializing in helping you win every day by streamlining workflows, managing documents, and providing the best-in-class office technology. Make your championship decision with UBO Business Services. Visit them at ubeo.com. That's ubeo.com.
Bring the whole family out to the ballpark for a Friday night showdown on May 26th as we take on the Houston Astros. Then enjoy a one-of-a-kind pop through the decades post-game fireworks show. Grab your seats today at athletics.com/fireworks.
Innovation is at the core of Cal State East Bay, like at our Green Biome Institute, where faculty and students preserve genetic information from California's endangered plants, or how we open doors for local entrepreneurs at our Small Business Development Center. From educators to nurses to STEM professionals, Cal State East Bay has real impact throughout the region's neighborhoods, boardrooms, and the entire economy. Be part of the innovation. Connect with Cal State East Bay at csueastbay.edu/impact.
And the underdogs, Oakland Athletics, win their first championship since they were in Philadelphia in 1930.
Hi, I'm Raleigh Fingers, Hall of Famer, three-time World Series champion with the Oakland A's and World Series MVP. Winning takes teamwork, skill, and heart. So when you need an ace for a personal injury lawyer that will win you the game, go with the winning team. Call Venardi Zerata at 833-VZ-FOR-ME or go to vzlawfirm.com. Venardi Serrata, the official injury law firm of the Oakland A's.
Become an A's insider today. Visit athletics.com/newsletter and sign up to receive the latest team highlights, up-to-date news, features, and more, all delivered free to your inbox. That's athletics.com/newsletter.
Ace fans need Friday night plans? Well, we got you covered. Get 4 tickets and parking for any Friday night game starting at just $49 with the Friday 4-pack presented by Chevrolet. Save big and enjoy great matchups, post-game fireworks and drone shows, giveaways, and more this 2023 season.
He drills one to right, way back, and no doubt. And that quickly, the A's have taken the lead. Second deck.
Friday night tickets are available at athletics.com/value. That's athletics.com/value.
If you're looking for a new mattress, Nest Bedding has you covered. Sleep on the same mattress Hall of Famer Ricky Henderson sleeps on. Nest Bedding is the #1 brand of online mattresses and the Bay Area's favorite mattress store. Take home the Easy Breather pillow. The New York Times calls it their #1 pick. You can navigate their easy-to-use website, nestbedding.com. That's nestbedding.com. Green and Gold fans, use the coupon code Oakland and you get 10% off your entire order. Nest Bedding, love where you sleep.
Humanity has accomplished a whole lot so far. We created penicillin, the automobile, and the internet, not to mention drones, duct tape, and the hot dog. It's all thanks to the power of human connections. And Ring Central's here to make that even easier, more seamlessly and securely, on a platform built to grow your business. Say hello to a whole new way to say hello. Visit ringcentral.com and say hello to possibilities. Ring Central. Message, video, phone, together.
Streaming from the town, A's Cast Live continues with Chris Townsend.
Well, it is always an honor to have the Oakland A's Hall of Famer, one of the greatest players in A's history, to be on with us. A's Cast Live on a day like this where we're remembering one of his heroes, and the great Dave Stewart back in town. Going to be doing A's pre- and post-game live. And, Dave, I just think about you as a kid growing up in Oakland. What Vida Blue must have meant to you as a kid.
You know, I was real fortunate. The first major meeting was Reggie Jackson, and I met Reggie in '68. And knowing Reggie and getting to know Reggie, it gave me access to a lot of the players with the Oakland A's teams back then. And then having the opportunity to meet Vida, you know, was magical for me. You know, I'd already adopted Juan Marshall and Bob Gibson as guys that I wanted to be like if I had an opportunity to pitch at the major league level. And then, you know, watching Vida Blue and Blue Moon Odom, you know, and Catfish even, it was even more of an impression on me. And then having an opportunity to talk with Vida, you know, at 19 years old, and me being 12 years old, you know, I didn't see him that much as, you know, a major league player. I looked at him more as one of the guys that I played in the street with when I was playing baseball with my brother. And, you know, I don't know if I fault my brother to that or I give gratitude to him, because when I met Vida, I felt like I was just talking to one of the kids that I play with.
That's kind of crazy. I didn't think about that. Like, here he is. He's becoming the MVP and the Cy Young Award winner, and he actually isn't that much older than you.
It's the truth. I mean, my brother is 5 years older than me, and he brought me everywhere that he went. I played baseball against all of his friends, and they were all older. And so, I mean, think about it. Vida was 19 years old when he showed up in the big leagues. And literally, man, a couple years older than my brother, so, he could have been playing in the street with us.
That's awesome. And I just think for you, seeing an African-American young pitcher just not be a good pitcher, but he becomes a star. Like I've been trying to tell everybody, we're just not talking Sports Illustrated, Baseball Digest back then. We're talking Time Magazine. We're talking Newsweek. We're talking late night talk shows. Vida Blue became an American sports star, and he's doing it right in front of you.
And he was. And it became apparent, when Vida finally got the opportunity to have impact on this team, he took the bull by the horns. He had a tremendous 71 season. And that's documented. We all know what he did that year. But it wasn't just that year. He continued to do it. And that 71 season, when you really look at the numbers, it was a very dominant year. Very, very dominant year.
I know a guy who was a mentor to you, taught you the old forkball. You think about the great Sandy Koufax. There haven't been, especially during that time, you hadn't seen that many left-handers who could get up on the mound, bring it high 90s, if not 100 miles an hour. We didn't have the gun then. But just talk about, what he was doing, that kind of just talent. You didn't see that very often in our game.
No, you didn't. It was very, very, very uncommon to see somebody with that kind of stuff take the mound and be as dominant as he was. I mean, he was absolutely unbelievable at that time. The things he was doing, throwing in the high 90s, dominating very good major league hitters. Just unbelievable the job that he did in that period of time.
And you think about his stardom, but what a great person, Vida Blue, everybody that got to know him, the way he treated all of us, even though he was this superstar, World Series champion, the All-Star games, the awards. Vida treated everybody the same. He was just so kind.
Vida was one of the, Vida was from Louisiana, and my folks are from Louisiana, and Vida didn't have any traits that were very different from my parents. They didn't know any strangers. Everybody was family, and that's how Vida treated people.
Well, I say this from this goes way back, like into the Fox Sports days, into the Comcast Sportsnet. Like I would see Vida in there, and he's working with all these young people. They really don't, kind of like, you think about your great career. You might work with a young person, and they don't know your entire history. Vida never big leagued anybody, even if they didn't know all the greatness about him. He worked with them in television there in the same studios you're in now. Never big leagued anybody.
No, that's just not in his DNA. Vida was good to anybody that crossed his path. He was just an unbelievable human being. You won't meet very many people like Vida Blue. And that's the legacy that he's left behind. If you hear it from one person, right at this moment you're hearing it from me, but if you talk to someone separate of me, they'll say the exact same thing about Vida. And you know what that means? That means he was consistent. He was consistent in who he was every day and how he treated people every day.
I know you got to do pregame, so we'll let you go. Let's just end on this. I know Vida Blue would be very proud of you and what you're doing with Nashville, and this is going to be historic in our game. Just how is everything going with your pursuit to get a Major League Baseball team?
Unfortunately, with all the news of the A's, it's really accelerated the things that are happening in Nashville, and we've been preparing for this for the last 4 years, and we know that there's still a pretty good road to go before we can actually put a team on the field. But with the A's making the decision that they made, like I said, and I mean that sincerely, unfortunately, because I could never picture Oakland not having a major league franchise, and that's an unfortunate situation. But that accelerates it, and then we're hoping that Tampa can figure out what they're going to do by the end of the year, and then that puts the commissioner in a situation that he can talk to the owners about two-team expansion.
Well, I always thank you for your time. It means so much. And I'll be in with you on Thursday and Friday on A's pre- and post-game live.
Looking forward to seeing you, man, and working with you, as you always know, Tony.
Take care, buddy.
Take care.
The great Dave Stewart right here on A's Cast Live, A's Hall of Famer. I mean, you imagine growing up in Oakland, and there you got guys like Reggie Jackson. You got, just hearing from Dave Feldman, another guy who grew up in, you grew up in Oakland at that time, and you're the Giants were here first. And of course they came over with a megastar and Willie Mays. And then you had Willie McCovey. They had that World Series against the Giants, against the Yankees, where they came up short. But you got this A's team that just, comes west from Kansas City. And who would have thought, right? Like, cause they stunk in Kansas City. That you're coming over from Kansas City, and next thing you know, this team that stunk in Kansas City is loaded with future Hall of Famers, future All-Stars, future dudes, like legit dudes. Like Sal Bando is not in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Vida Blue is not in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Joe Rudy is not in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Ken Holtzman is not in the base. Blue Moon. We can go on, but they were dudes. They were legit, terrific players, to mix in the fact that you do have Hall of Famers in Catfish Hunter and Reggie Jackson, and arguably the greatest reliever of all time in Rollie Fingers. And yes, I say that because you can do the numbers. I just sent him a list today of, they're talking about the greatest closers of all time. 4 of them, 2 of them out of the 4, the top 4, Mariano, Trevor Hoffman, Rollie Fingers, Dennis Eckersley. You could debate those 4, but you look at the career numbers, I think you could make a case. Rollie's, no offense, we love Eck. No offense, Mariano Rivera, incredible. Trevor Hoffman, incredible. You can make a case Rollie Fingers was the best, but you think about this group, and I can't speak to the team. I can lie to you, but I can. I was born in 72. I can't say I was keeping score for the 74 World Series against the Dodgers. I was not. But I've done my work. I've done my history. I've read up on it. I've interviewed all of these guys multiple times. I've hosted all their events, and I've gotten to know them. They know me. I just look at the history of these guys, and it's incredible. And yeah, you can try and emulate it. I don't think there's been a team, and the Big Red Machine, because you got to remember the Reds had the success too in the late 60s into the 70s. Ever before they won the World Series in 75, 76, they played the A's in the World Series in 72. Did they play in 71? What did they do in 71? Once again, I was not born.
I'm pretty sure
they made another. Did they make the World Series in 70 or 71?
I want to say it was 70 because 71 was the Pirates.
So it might have been 70 they were in the World Series?
They might have been in the they might have been them and the Pirates in the NLCS. Let me see. Oh no, it was Pirates over the Giants.
Look at 70 World Series. Were the Reds in the 70 World Series? So the point is those guys you're looking at
Orioles over Cincinnati, yeah.
Yeah. So you have this time of the Big Red Machine and the A's. The majority of it's homegrown. When's the last time we really saw a home? I mean, the majority of the guys are homegrown. Like, I know you could say the Yankees run because we look at that core. You're going to throw Pettit and Posada and Bernie Williams, friend of the program. That could be one you bring in there. Maybe the Giants.
I would say them or Kansas City.
Kansas City, yeah.
I mean, majority of their guys, except for Johnny Cueto, but majority of their guys, like the bullpen
But if we
guys,
really went through the 25-man roster, I mean, how many of the guys are really homegrown?
I'm just picturing the core. Like,
we can take some certain guy, but like we're talking about a lot of the A's were homegrown.
Yeah, I was looking.
The team.
I was looking.
Yeah, you may have got Ken Holtzman, but everybody else, all your starters, I mean, the majority of the guy, I mean, Campy's homegrown. You just go around the diamond. This isn't like, well, you have Lorenzo Cain and you got Eric Hosmer and you got Salvi and a couple guys. I mean, you're talking about the entire team who's starting on the mound, the guys who are playing. These guys are all homegrown.
I know, and you're mentioning how bad the Kansas City Athletics were, and I went back to look because I was curious. From 1955 to 1967, how many winning seasons did the Kansas City A's have?
Well, what happened in 1960?
1960.
Yeah.
I wasn't even born. My dad wasn't even born yet.
Yeah, my grandfather managed the Kansas City A's in 1960.
They had no winning seasons ever in Kansas City.
No, they were bad.
But then they come to Oakland.
But no one, that's the thing. No one, when they were coming to Oakland, no one had any idea. Why? What, could you just go to kansascityathletics.com and look at the roster? No. No one had any idea in Oakland what was coming. They had no idea what was coming.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
I mean, how would you know that you've got this kid named Vida Blue that's going to be a absolute star? How did you know that you were going to have Reggie Jackson, Catfish Hunter, Baseball Hall of Famers, Raleigh Fingers? You got no idea. Raleigh Fingers was I tell the story all the time about Raleigh. I know I've said it on this show plenty of times. I'm like, you realize Raleigh was a starter? Raleigh Fingers once threw he threw a complete game in spring training.
Yeah, I love that story.
I was reading it. I was like, how's that possible? They allowed Raleigh Finger. You want to know how different and why pitchers were true pitchers and why pitching was better? Because guys pitched. Now what we have is guys who are taking their bodies to the absolute limit every time they go out, and the body can only do so much. I think Verlander is the great example. How many times did we face Verlander? He would start the game out 94, 93, 95. And then by the time he needed it in the 7th and 8th, now it's 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, I don't
versus DeGrom is coming out from the first pitch, throwing a 92-mile-an-hour slider, trying to punch everybody out. And this is what I'll say about DeGrom, to be fair to him and his greatness when he has been on, is that DeGrom pushed his body to the limit every single time he went out, and his body just can't withstand it. His arm, his scapula, the back, it just can't withstand it. We have taken these pitchers and we want them to go max everything. I want it to be your best slider every time. I want to be your best fastball. I don't need you to go out and give me a ton of innings. I just need you to be hell on wheels when you're out there. And you're asking these guys to be at full max versus you got what we used to teach everybody is you don't bring everything in the first inning. You don't you don't show everything. You don't that's how you last in game. You learn how to pitch. You learn how to pitch to a guy in the first at bat versus the third at bat. This is an old man river. This is essential. Like we're a sport that we've now told guys, we don't want you to play the whole game. Right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like basketball. We all love the Warriors, right? Not you, Kings fan. Light the beam.
Sixers.
You don't go and show your top plays in a basketball game at the beginning of the game.
Factual.
You don't show your playbook at the beginning of a football game. Those go-to must-need plays don't show up till the fourth quarter. But on baseball, we want our starting pitchers to come out and just give me 6 and just strike everybody out. Well, in that process, the human body, we're asking these guys to be full tilt every single time they get on the mound, and their bodies can't stand it. They can't take it. And that's why we see so many surgeries, so many Tommy Johns. So what do? We have you go get Tommy John, and then we have you get back on the mound and do the same thing.
Yeah.
And even though pitching coaches, Scott Emerson will come on the show and talk about pitching and the art of pitching, and then you just look at the radar gun. Every guy's throwing every fastball as fast as he can. Mason Miller's up there throwing as hard as he can on every single pitch, and he's putting the slider and the cutter and and it's just not, hey, man, I'm painting the corners, throwing strikes. I mean, hey, can Mason Miller get people out at 95?
Yes.
And then maybe he can go 120 pitches and throw 9 innings. I mean, it's amazing how we act, and I love how David Feldman said that about everybody. When I was like, Mason Miller's going to have a no-hitter and only 100 pitches, I mean, seriously, really? Oh, my God. We act like he's 12 years old in Little League. Oh, my God, he's never pitched. Like his parents are like, you're going to hurt his arm. Dude, he's a young man. He's strong. And we act like, okay, you're not going to let him throw the pitches now. When are you ever going to let him to throw the pitches?
You mean when his arm gets more tread on it, and you think
I mean, seriously, I've checked 3 different orthopedic surgeons to say this one. Guys who perform Tommy John surgeries, they say that this 100 pitch thing's bogus, but yet everybody believes it. I had Ken Korak all over me in the dugout going, everybody buys in. You had to take him out. You had to take him out. He hasn't pitched. This is when he's going to be his strongest. He doesn't have the wear and tear. He doesn't have 12 years of pitching underneath his belt. I mean, if you can't your 20s go deep in games, when can you go deep in games?
Yeah, well, you're not gonna emphasize going deep in games when you're in your mid to late 30s. Not everyone's Justin Verlander.
Will Mason Miller be around in his mid 30s?
I can't answer that question.
No, we don't know.
Here, I'm just gonna.
But he had a no-hitter and we took him out.
I'm going to look at a couple of Vida's
games. And Feldman made a great point. He thought he was coming out in the 6th.
Yeah,
we're conditioning pitchers to be like 6 innings. I'm good. Which that's why I get on about Verlander. Look at Verlander in the postseason. 6 innings. I'm good. Pitched against San Diego. Through his 6, he was out, laughing in the dugout. I mean, how many great pitchers would be smiling and high-fiving people being taken out of a game where you've gone 6 innings and only given up 2 runs, and you're supposed to be the best pitcher on the planet?
Yeah.
That's embarrassing.
So I was trying to find, just like look at Vida's pitch count from 1971, but it's for some reason on Baseball Reference it doesn't have pitches on here. Were they not tracking that back then?
How do you get stronger? How do you get better? How do you get better doing something less?
Yeah, you want the reps to get stronger. I mean, when you're lifting weights, this is a bad analogy because I don't lift weights, but when you lift weights and you do reps, you get stronger by doing more reps.
Well, I can't speak at pitching at the big league level. I can't do it, right? I just can't. But I know at a pretty decent competitive level, I know what it was like to close games. I know what it was like to be a middle reliever. And I knew what it was like to be a starter. And there's an art to pitching and getting deep into games. And it's not going out there and trying to strike everybody out. Are there games where you do? Yes. But we want everybody to perform like 2 guys. And I think there's 2 guys that we can relate to in modern times that did it for a really, really long time and we believe to be clean. That's why I take Clemens out. Nolan Ryan and Randy Johnson, from the moment they started pitching, Randy was a little wild, so was Nolan, but from the moment they started to the moment they ended, they threw gas. And there's no Tommy John surgery in there. They were freaks.
Yeah,
they were freaks.
They really were.
Randy Johnson and Nolan Ryan, obviously Nolan, then Randy, 1-2 all-time strikeouts. They were freaks. To throw that hard, that kind of velocity for that long, and they didn't get hurt. Randy had the bad back, and at the end, Nolan's arm game out at 46. But the fact that they did that all those years, they're freaks. We're seeing that all these young guys who are all throwing hard and they can't sustain it. We had a conversation. We're going to get more into this because I think Vida Blue is a great example. We're going to look at Vida Blue's career, and we're going to look at the things that Vida did. Like, we're not going to have if you go to the all-time list right now, you can go, you just put in all-time innings pitched, all-time strikeouts, of what guys need to do. Vida's not in the Baseball Hall of Fame. You could just look at his numbers and you can get into the Hall of Fame. There's nobody in their 20s who has any volume whatsoever who's going to have any Hall of Fame credentials. What are their Hall of Fame credentials going to be when you don't have volume? By the way, here's another thing that you and I are now talking for the first time, not off the air, because I kind of got you in a little ways on this. We're like, hey, strikeouts. Well, if you don't pitch a lot of innings, you're not going to get a lot of strikeouts. You have to pitch to get numbers. This is a game of math. If you don't pitch a lot of innings, you're not going to get a lot of strikeouts. You know what's also going to happen to you when you, as we're trying to figure out a way, and it's front office's fault, but 6-man rotations, guys getting skipped all the time, not having a ton of starts, not having a ton of innings, your WAR doesn't build up.
That's a good point.
Your WAR, so like when I threw him the question, 20 years from now, you don't like pitcher wins, okay, but what comes with pitchers wins? Innings, strikeouts. I mean, you'll see all the guys in the Hall of Fame, 300 wins. What does the win matter? But the reason they were able to get that because of volume. They starts, innings. They all got strikeouts. They all got well, if we're taking the starts away, we're taking the innings away, you're not building on the math. How are you going to get to that high WAR if you're not building on the math that contributes to the WAR?
Yeah, it's difficult. I mentioned to you about, I mean, you're going to have to start, as the cliche is, moving the goalposts, because, you know, we look at it now with 300 wins and 3,000 strikeouts I don't think, now could be wrong, but once we get past this era, because you already got Verlander and Greinke, you're past it. Yes.
Kershaw, where's he?
You're talking about career wins?
He's right on the doorstep at 200, right?
Yeah, I think if he's not
Wainwright, who still hasn't pitched. When's Wainwright coming back?
Actually, he pitched the other day.
He did? He's one start back?
He pitched the other day. You know, the catcher they signed all that money to is now not a catcher anymore.
Oh, well, you said he was a Gold Glover.
I would $87.5 million. He's not catching anymore. Unless it's Greinke's at 224, Verlander's at 244.
Where's Kershaw?
I'm getting that. I don't think he has 200. He has 202. Scherzer has 203.
Okay, where's Wainwright? He's 2-3 behind.
Wainwright's at 195.
Okay, so Wainwright's got 5 more to 200. And after that, no one's close. The next active guy, you're going to have Madison Bumgarner and Garrett Cole. Cole Hamels is done. Stop.
Yeah. I thought that. Didn't the Padres sign him?
He's not even on a team.
I thought the Padres signed him. He's probably hurt.
No. He didn't make the team.
Cueto's with the Marlins, right? So he's
143, no chance.
And he's 37.
Where's Cole?
Cole's like
Garrett Cole's the next. Garrett Cole's the one guy you can look at.
135.
So Garrett Cole, once the old guys get there, where do we say Kershaw is?
202.
Okay, so if Wainwright gets there, I got to think he will.
It's 5, yeah.
The only guy that's even maybe getting to 200 wins, forget 300 wins, 200 wins is Garrett Cole.
Garrett Cole has one more win and 500 less innings than Madison Bumgarner.
And when we talk about Madison Bumgarner potentially being a Hall of Famer, by the way, I think it's going to gain traction because you're going to see, not only was he a beast in the postseason, what you're going to see is nobody's even forget wins. You guys, this is why I'm going to battle you on all right, forget wins. You're not getting enough innings to get strikeouts, to get WAR, to even be on a level of, you say move the goalpost? What's the goalpost going to be? Like, how low? Because if we project now with how we look at Hall of Famers, there is not a pitcher after Kershaw. I don't know when Greinke will retire. I don't know when Verlander is going to retire. I don't know when Verlander's getting in. Greinke will get in. Kershaw will get in.
Scherzer will get in.
Scherzer will get in. But these are old guys. Once the old guys are gone and they get in next 20 years, there's not one pitcher tracking to ever come close to a Hall of Fame career.
Yeah, like Wainwright will be. I don't think Wainwright gets in.
It's an old guy. And this is the thing. I was like, you don't have anybody who's kind of young, let alone young, that you look at and go, oh yeah, he'll have numbers. Nobody.
Yeah, Cole's only 32, but that's older
30,
now.
And he's not even close.
Yeah, he's at what I say was at 135.
But just everything. Like Cole,
look, Steven Strasburg's on this list.
He's done.
He hasn't pitched in like 4 years.
Done. And then, from the standpoint of we've destroyed the starting pitcher and we've destroyed the closer. We don't have celebrity all-star closers anymore. We just don't. You're not going to have a guy that, whatever you want to call, what your threshold would be for a Hall of Fame closer. There's going to be nobody that even sniffs those kind of numbers because the high leverage innings, and you know what? The front offices may be right. But from a standpoint of selling our game and selling pitching and make people interested in pitching, because I'll tell you what, I got the old scorebook here. It'd make Vida Blue sick. You want to name me all the pitchers who pitched this weekend between the A's and the Royals?
There was a lot. I can't name them all.
Didn't you watch the games?
Not yesterday, but Friday.
Yeah,
Saturday.
I'm talking Friday, Saturday. Can you name all the guys who pitched Friday and Saturday?
Let's see. Well, actually, I know Yarbrough and Miller pitched yesterday as starters.
Friday and Saturday.
Friday would have been Kyle Muller.
Mm-hmm.
And who started for Kansas City? Singer started Saturday, right? Singer was Saturday because their pitching's been really brutal.
But that's what I'm saying. Back in the day when we highlighted the guy who threw the baseball, he was important. Now they're not. It's just
Aroldis Chapman pitched. I know that.
That was yesterday. It's just a conveyor belt of nobody relievers. That's all our game is, a conveyor belt of
Melcher Law Firm.
Hesley and Patton and Taylor and Mall. We got Austin Pruitt. I mean, it was just a cavalcade Friday and Saturday of just relievers. Barlow. That's what we're selling our game on. Some random Kansas City reliever named Barlow.
Was it Scott or was it
I don't even remember.
Maybe Scott's the one for the Rangers.
That's what that. And this is when it comes to selling the game, kind of the problem that we've turned the important guy, the guy that handles the ball, versus tonight. Who's handling the ball tonight? I know it's the playoffs, but it gets worse in the playoffs in baseball.
They're talking about say Nestor Cortez.
I'm going to say it gets worse in baseball because baseball, we really have a quick hook for starters. And we can't wait to get to the nobody relievers. Man, NBA, you get in the playoffs, the guys who score points and the point guards, they handle the ball. They're the stars. Stars handle the ball. In baseball, it's who's the next random dude out of the bullpen.
There's a lot of random relievers. I mean, who was it? Was it Rosen?
But you know what? For the front offices, what have they done? They've really cut how much they have to pay starters
and relievers.
Not having the star reliever, don't got to pay the closer. They've figured out a way to save money, but and that's the thing. It's like front offices don't do what's best for selling and making our game important.
Yeah, and you have teams like what Houston's done. They signed Montero to a huge deal, and he's not even the closer. And
that's fine.
The Padres did it with Suarez. Has he pitched this year? Is he hurt?
No, he's pitched. I don't know if he's been hurt.
I haven't watched a lot of Bob Melvin and the Padres.
But Padres have signed starters to try and. But I mean, there's so many teams that. Well, it just goes hand in hand, right? Who's had the best starters from production standpoint so far this year? Pretty easy.
The Rays.
The Rays. Who's got the best record?
Tampa Bay.
Who's had the worst production of starters this year?
The A's.
Who's had the worst record?
It's the A's again now. We were tied with Kansas City.
So it's like, okay, so you're telling me the Rays have done a lot of different ways, but just look at this year. It's not a small sample size anymore. We played well over a month of baseball. Rays have had the best starting pitching. They have the best record.
Yeah.
They have the best winning percentage by starters. Who's got the lowest? Who didn't get a win from their starters for 32 starts?
Then at 2 in a row, that'd be the A's.
I talked to the great Amelia Schimmel today, and you guys play the devil's advocate. But what about the time the guy throws 7 innings? And there's the outliers.
There was a Randy Johnson.
The majority of the time when you pitch long in games, that means your team's doing well, you're doing well, and you get the win. Does it always work that way? Well, you don't always go out and throw 4 touchdown passes in a game and your team wins.
That's very true.
So it's like it's not always going to be perfect. But what about the individual? You talking about the Randy Johnson?
The Randy Johnson note. I saw that earlier. What was it? It was in 2001. Randy Johnson strikes out 20 Reds batters in 9 innings with 0 walks, but his team didn't score a run in the 9 innings he pitched.
But that goes back to my old buddy Bill Romanowski. What would Bill Romanowski say to that? Bill Romanowski wouldn't sit there and go, "Oh, good for you. You didn't win, but you pitched well. You should get so much credit." You know what Bill would say?
Oh, I was going to say, guess what?
Guess what? The other guys get paid too.
Yeah.
For some reason, baseball statisticians and baseball, they just want to count just, this is what you did. This is the other, you're playing against other human beings. They're getting paid a lot of money too to play. So just because you went out and threw well doesn't mean their guy can't go out and throw well too. But we got to give credit. So much credit for you just because you did well. It's like, well, great, but my point is, and I'm going to want to get into Dave Feldman with this, is we're going to have a really hard time figuring out how to get pitchers into the Hall of Fame years from now when they're going to have no career stats.
I think
they have no volume.
I think I found it.
As you said, you actually bet a dinner to prove my point that no one would even have 200 innings last year.
I thought it was trending that way. I was wrong.
But we are trending that way. Well, all of a sudden, you got guys, if you have no innings, you can't accumulate any type of numbers.
Yeah, so Vida won 209 games. He pitched over 3,000 innings. He won a Cy Young and an MVP in the same year. Only one of 11 guys to ever do that. He got 8.7% on the Hall of Fame ballot.
Who is the next pitcher that's going to have 3,000 innings?
Kershaw. Is Kershaw there?
3,000? I know it's not going to be DeGrom. I mean, it's going to be interesting to look at DeGrom's career because DeGrom has no length of a career. He has a couple years, and those years were incredible strikeout, didn't get hit, but he didn't pitch deep.
He'll get there. Kershaw's at 2,623 and 2/3. So
he's a few seasons away.
Yeah, he's at least another 2.5.
Kershaw is still 2 seasons away. Think of how long and how great Clayton Kershaw, and he's still not at 3,000. Kind of gives you an idea of how good Vida Blue was.
What's Greinke at? Greinke's almost at 3,300. So he's Cole's at like 17, and he's 32 years old.
Are you coming around now a little bit? That you're not going to have any numbers for these guys.
I know, that's why
Garrett Cole is not getting 3,000 innings. Vida Blue had 3,000 innings.
No,
you guys are so obsessed with the here and the now, and like we do it on MLB Network. Who's the best pitcher now? And you'll be like, some of these guys that are on your best pitcher now list, they last 2-3 years. There's like no one's even thinking about a career and longevity. I mean, what makes athletes great? It's doing it more than just a couple years. You've got to do it for more than a couple of years. And now you're looking at going, we used to not even think about innings pitched, right? We didn't even think about, we don't even if we just look at Baseball Hall of Famers, we don't say, how many innings did they pitch? Now that's going to be a big deal. Yeah. It's going to be a really big deal because innings pitch allow you to get strikeouts, get you all the numbers that you need to get you the WAR to get you into the Hall of Fame.
I was looking at a guy, and before we get to Vida, I was looking at a guy who, Urias, was a workhorse for the Dodgers the last few years. He won 20 games a few years ago, won 17 last year. The guy has 645 career innings. He's 26, but he's coming nowhere close to 3,000.
And he started when he was 19.
15 games when he was 19. Then he kind of a couple of years where it was kind of sporadic. I think he was hurt.
Sent him down.
Yeah.
I mean, how many innings did Vida Blue have by the time he was 26?
When Vida was 26, he was he threw 298 and a third that year. Vida from his first year in 1969 when he first debuted to 1976, he won 110 games and he had 1,666 innings pitched.
So you got Urias from the Dodgers. Is that 600 and something?
645.
So Vida Blue, you look at as you said, Urias is a big deal in LA, right?
Yeah.
120 games and 18 the next year. Wins don't matter. So Vida Blue, by the time he's the same age as Urias, has over 1,000 more innings.
And he has 20. 89 complete games.
I'll be retired, but hopefully you're still in the business so I can call you up and say I told you so.
How many career complete games does Julio Urias have?
I'll go up 2.
None.
Is it really that? Well, I mean, it's because we got to get to that bullpen of the that great bullpen of the Dodgers.
Yeah, but okay. Well, one last one. Then we promise we'll get to Vida. How many career complete games does Zach Greinke have?
Probably not a lot.
Remember, Greinke started pitching for the Royals
in
2004 when he was 20.
I'm gonna say not a lot.
17. Vida had 89 before he turned when he was in his age 26 year.
Do you know who is the color commentator for the Oakland Athletics on television?
That'd be Dallas Braden.
Dallas Braden has more complete games than Jacob deGrom.
Fact.
That's fact. Dallas Braden. How crazy is that?
It is. Every time you say that, it makes me think. I mean, Dallas is a good pitcher for the A's, but we look at deGrom as a
historic.
I won't say it, but Tim Kirkson, no, he won't say it either. There are people that are out there go, well, he's a future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, he's the best pitcher we've ever saw. I mean, when you throw that hard and your slider's 92, and yes, deGrom, hell on wheels for this period of time, but the problem is you trained him like that, his body can't take it.
Yeah.
His body, he's already had Tommy John. He's got a hurt elbow again. He's had the scapula problem. Clearly, his body can't take that type of pressure on it over and over and over again. What if he would have pitched like, where would DeGrom be in his career if he took it like Verlander, where he wasn't trying to throw from the first inning to whatever, all out Verlander was brilliant. Verlander would live at a miles per hour where he wasn't maxing out, and he would max out later on when he needed it.
Yeah, and also, I'm not using this as a thing, but DeGrom didn't start pitching in the majors until he's 26. So imagine if he didn't take it, as they say, balls to the wall every time he goes out there, and he actually pitched like Verlander, and he actually wasn't 26 years old. He would probably have a nice little longevity to his career, but he's just trying to go 100 miles an hour every time he's out there, and here he is on the injured list yet again. He's made like 44 starts in 4 years or something like that.
They're going to have to, somebody with biomechanics, they're going to have to say, okay, listen, your theory of throw less is going to protect these guys is wrong. The theory is going to be not expecting max on everything. Breaking balls, fastballs, learning to get back to throwing at a pace your body can take and go max when you need it.
Yeah.
Not going max hell on wheels every single pitch, every single start. Your body can't sustain it. All righty. We got a wonderful opportunity. We knew he wasn't doing well, but had no idea this would be the last time we would speak with Vida Blue. And I believe this is his last official sit-down interview that he did. He may have talked to some reporters after, but when you sit down, formal interview, this might have been the last one he ever did. And like I said, I've known Vida Blue since the 90s when I first got in this business. Always treated me with such respect. As a young guy talking baseball with him, I did some shows with him on KMBR. I've done some TV with him. I've known Vida Blue my entire professional career. And Vida is just he was the best. And, I always had so much respect, the standpoint that Vida was a regular dude, but yet when he was a player, he was a star. He was a star player. Here is our conversation about the 1973 team. What was it, 4 weeks ago?
April 15th. So, yeah, not even a month ago.
April 15th. A's Hall of Famer, Vida Blue. Greatness of Vida Blue, and we're celebrating the 1973 World Series champions. You were such a huge part. You think about that year. You won 20 games. You guys won the World Series.
Nice.
And it was the second straight year winning the World Series for you.
Pretty cool, huh? I think, Chris, I was turning 23 that July, so pretty cool. And in my wildest dreams, of course, when you in the minor leagues, you want to make it to the majors. And once you get to the majors, what's next? You want to win the World Series. That's every player's dream, and mine was no different. But to do it 1, 2, 3 years in a row is pretty cool. And we played a pretty decent Mets team. And I think that was the last time Willie Mays wore a baseball uniform.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was sad to see him go because he's my childhood idol, along with the Aarons and Frank Robinsons, and of course, let's not forget Mr. Robinson himself.
Yeah.
So, pretty cool, man. I enjoyed the ride, and thanks for honoring us today, and thanks for letting me get a little face time.
Well, you think about where you were at this point, right? 71, then 72, you win the World Series. Now you win it again. So people thought, the A's got lucky in 72 against the Reds. Now they weren't saying that. You've won 2 straight World Series. You go to another one, win again in 74. But what was that thought process, validating it and doing it again?
I don't know, man. Like I said, I was too young to figure out what the heck was going on.
Life was just going too good.
All I know, I was enjoying the ride, and we had a great ball team, but I think the Mets might have matched up against us with their pitching with Tom Seaver, Tug McGraw, Jerry Koosman. Was it Craig Swan? I think it was Swan. I can't think of his first name, but they matched up pretty good with us. But we had Catfish Hunt and Raleigh Fingers and Blue Moon Odom and Paul Lindblad and Darryl Knowles and a guy named Vida Blue. So again, man, in your wildest dreams, you don't think about winning it. Then you think about repeating. Said, nah. I know this for a fact. You mentioned the word luck when you asked your question. I know it wasn't luck. It was all skill, baby.
Well, I remember our buddy Ray Fosse said when he came here, this was his first year with the A's.
He thought we were crazy.
Dick Green told him, we're going to win the World Series. And, Ray's coming from Cleveland where they were out of first place as of game 1 of the season, right?
80,000 people opening day, and after that, see you later.
Yeah, and he said it was unbelievable the confidence you guys had and the belief that you guys had in yourselves.
I think what us might have scared them was that we fought amongst ourselves. And there was always a little brawl between this guy and that guy and this guy. But when it came down to crossing that white line, we were all business. And you have to give a shout out to our managers. And you have to give credit to Charlie Finley. He's the one that assembled us and put us together. May he rest in peace. But the man knew what he was doing. I know that. He would call me in the wintertime and say, Vida, what do you think of Don Bell? I'm like, hey, man, he's a tough out for me. Please, now you're a teammate. Don't say anything until like 4 o'clock, and there's going to be a press release. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? What the heck you talking about, man? But we got to give credit to the ownership, got to give credit to the coaches. And they put us in a position to win and be successful each and every day, and it worked out for us. But we wanted the Yankees are the only other team to three-peat. Then the Yankees win it 5 years in a row at one time.
They won 5 years in a row, yeah.
But to be amongst those dynasties of the Yankees, it's pretty cool to not compare, but be in the same sense as when you talk about teams winning the championship more than twice.
Yeah, it's just the A's and the Yankees to do a three-peat. And, now when you get together, we just talked to Joe Rudy about this. I mean, you guys were more than just teammates. You guys were like brothers. What's it like to still get together at this point?
Well, we're getting up in age. As you heard me grunting, getting out of the little cart that they provided me with. But it's always nice to see each other. And, of course, coming over on the bus, we're reminiscing about this and that. And I'm amazed the memory of some of these guys have talking about a certain game at bat or pitchers or situation in which we were confronted with. But, the game of baseball has kept me young in a sense in itself, Chris, because I can remember certain pitching situations, but when I'm going to the grocery store, I forget to get the eggs. I'm not sure how that works, but I can remember baseball stuff 20 years ago. I can't remember to get the eggs at Safeway, so I'm not sure how it works like that, but that's the way it is.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've known you for a long time, and all the years after your career in the media and the television, You talk about one of the great baseball lives. You've had one of them, and you're truly an A's great. And everybody in the Bay Area, you're one of the few guys that play for both teams, and you're always going to be remembered as absolute greatness in this area.
I wouldn't trade it for nothing in the world, man. It's the experience that a kid from Mansfield, Louisiana, left town and seeking his fortune, and I'm on playing with house money.
Well, it's always great to see you, my
Chris.
friend.
My pleasure, man.
The great Vida Blue.
How cool was that? He will be missed. He was a wonderful man. You know, beyond baseball, we can sit here and talk about World Series, MVP, Cy Young, all of that. He was a class act. Treated everybody with respect. Was very humble. And you talk about how great the player was. You can also talk about how great the man was. Think about how nice he was to you.
Yeah. I didn't know Vida as well as I knew some other people, but I got to know Vida over the last couple of years.
Yeah, he was salt of the earth, and he will be missed. And that's why we wanted to dedicate this show to the A's Hall of Famer, because he deserved it. We want to do a tribute show. I know A's Yankees is important, but he deserves something like this because he was a great A and he was a great person. It was an honor to be a part of this today with all the great guests. When you think of Rollie Fingers, Joe Rudy, Marty Lurie, David Feldman, Dave Stewart, and Vida himself stopping by.
Yeah. We're going to have Dick Green tomorrow.
The great Dick Green. Special stuff for a very special man. Thank you for watching A's Cast Live. A's Total Access, getting you ready for A's and Yankees next, right here on A's Cast. This is Chris Townsend. There are two things that are a must for me: comfort and style. Whether I'm playing golf, going to dinner, I've got to have the right feel. That's why I've partnered with Linksole, and you're going to love Linksole. They have just released their new spring line, new fabrics for their polos, lightweight and perfect for technical performance. Linksole also has new styles for their layers and hoodies with cool prints and seasonal colors. You know what they say in the big leagues: look good, play good. Go to linksole.com. That's linksole.com.
Chevron with Techron has unbeatable engine cleaning power, and it gives you unbeatable mileage for all kinds of